Welcome to Alpha 201, Introduction to Mobile Development with Alpha Anywhere. In this course, you are going to learn the core skill sets for building mobile applications using the Alpha Anywhere development environment. During the course, you will build a data-driven mobile application that connects to back-end data sources. The mobile application will also have full offline data editing and syncing capabilities supported by the Alpha Anywhere architecture. We will continue to use the example company Alpha Sports. In this training, we'll be focusing on adding a field customer directory to the Alpha Sports system. Alpha Sports field personnel can use the application to look up and update customer data while working disconnected in the field. We will be covering the following core topics of the Alpha Anywhere mobile application development system. Connecting your mobile application to back-end SQL data sources. Using the built-in mobile UX component template to quickly build your first mobile application. Add images, buttons, and other navigation items to your mobile application. Using the built-in Action JavaScript to provide navigation and other behaviors to your mobile application. Using the new control bar technology to add powerful headers and footers that have interactive controls. Adding a list detail view combination to display and edit data both offline and online. Data field formatting to present a clean user interface to your users. Updating and synchronizing data offline. Adding a map to your mobile application to present customer maps to your users. And using the built-in remote testing facility to test your mobile application on your mobile device. Also during the training, we'll be discussing how to use the core Alpha Anywhere panel technology to provide mobile optimized views and navigation. By the end of this course, you will be able to confidently build your first offline data-driven application with sophisticated data presentation and navigation. Our first step for building our mobile application is to set up our folder that will hold all of our project information and workspace files. To do so, go to your Windows desktop, select the File Explorer. Once in the File Explorer, go to your Documents. I happen to have a folder already created, ready to go, and in that folder I collect and have all of my different workspaces. You're welcome to create your own folder in your own location, but it's always a good practice to have a single folder holding all of your different applications. So let's go ahead and go into this folder here, and I'm going to go ahead and create a folder that's going to hold my content. So I'm going to right-click, New Folder, and in this case I'm going to call it Alpha 201, which is the name of this course, and hit Enter. We now have our new empty folder. I'm going to go ahead and go into that folder. Now, you'll notice that we've provided you two sample files. First is a MDB file, access file, which we'll use for our data. So make sure to copy that into your Alpha 201 folder. We've also given you a sample logo that will be used for our mobile application. So also grab that and copy that into your folder. That way you have it in one location. We'll actually be moving this logo into our workspace a little later. But it's nice to have everything located at one spot so in the future you know exactly where these pieces are. Once you've completed that step, your folder is ready to go and we're ready to move to the next step, which is to create our workspace. Now that we have our folder ready to go, let's go ahead and create our new workspace. Click the Start button. I have gone ahead and put Alpha Anywhere on my start. You may have this as a desktop icon. Let's go ahead and launch Alpha Anywhere. You'll be presented with the news and updates. This is always very helpful because you can see a lot of the latest and greatest information when it launches. Click on the Workspace and Tasks tab. Once you are there, you'll see there are some examples, but what we want to do is create a new empty workspace. So click Create a New Empty Workspace. Once you've done that, click OK. This will open up a dialog box for creating a new workspace. let's go ahead and put in for the workspace name Alpha 102, or I'm sorry, 201. Now we want to locate that folder that we created before, so let's click Browse. I'm going to go into my Documents, into that folder, and then select my Alpha 201 folder, and click OK. Now you'll notice there's a checkbox here for Create Workspace Directory. In this case, we do not want it to create a directory because it would actually create another directory within there. If you're starting from scratch, you could always use this methodology, but we already had a workspace directory ready to go. So I'm going to disable that. And so therefore it will create my workspace files and put them directly in this folder. If not, again, it would take this folder and append a new folder and put everything in there. Go ahead and click OK. You will be presented with a question, which is which startup control panel would you like to use? In our case, we use the web control panel, so we want to select that and enable Open the web control panel when this workspace is opened, and click OK. This will now open up our new workspace. We don't have any files. Let's go ahead and expand that to take up the whole screen here. Now I want to do one thing real quickly. As we mentioned before, we provided two items, one which is a database file, the other is an image file that will be used for your logo. Let's go ahead and bring that image file into our project. So follow along, click Images on the left-hand side, and then click Add File. This will open up a file browser window. Let's go ahead and go to our Documents, into Alpha Anywhere V12, into Alpha 201, and you'll notice that there's nothing showing here, but you'll also notice in the lower right corner that currently it's only looking for JPEG images. So I'm going to actually select that and make that PNG images, and you'll notice now our logo shows up. By the way, you can also go down and select all files to see all file types show up here. Go ahead and select Alpha Sports logo and click Open. At that time, you'll see that the image has been imported into our project, into our specific workspace, and you'll note it is also showing up here in the workspace directory under Images. So that's a nice little step there. And now it's actually located in its original place, but it's also now inside of your workspace folder. So now we can select it when we move to further steps down the road. In our next section, we're going to do a quick overview of the workspace IDE, or Integrated Development Environment. For those that are new to developing with Alpha Anywhere, I wanted to take a few moments and walk you through the Alpha Anywhere Integrated Development Environment. First and foremost, I want to show you down below, you'll notice we have two tabs. You want to make sure that the Web Projects Control Panel is selected. There's a second control panel called Control Panel, which is the Legacy Control Panel. This was more focused on desktop apps. We will be using this control panel in future training because there's a way to create little XBasic scripts and code elements here to be able to run. But for our purposes, we want to make sure we're on the Web Projects Control Panel. And you can select that in one of two ways. You can either click Web Projects Control Panel here, or you'll notice up top there's a button on the tab bar called Web Projects, and that returns you there. And I usually always have this expanded in the screen so that it takes up all of the screen. So the major components of the control panel are, first, we have our menus. This is where we can do things like cloning workspaces, editing and modifying it. There are also a number of search functionalities and other bulk operations under the edit. We'll be coming back to some of these, but in the web one, this is where we manage our development server and also different types of publishing. Under tools, which is a very important one, we access things such as the Alpha DA connection strings, which we'll be doing in the next section, to set up connections to databases, storage systems, SQL Server reporting services, and name providers, which is part of the new Web API capability. We'll be focusing only on Alpha DAO for this particular course, but you will be using these in the future. You also have built into it a navigation system. So you'll notice on the left-hand side, we have a series of different types of information that will be in your workspace. The one we're going to focus a lot on is web components. As you can see, when I clicked on there, there's nothing available here, but any web components would show up here, along with any A5W pages. I'm going to go ahead and click back on images, and then you'll notice, here are the images. So this is basically just a nice file navigator that coordinates those. And then these buttons are associated with that. In terms of adding a file here, we'll be adding an image file into the system. You can also create new files directly within the toolbar here. We'll also talk briefly about publishing. That will come in a little later when we start testing our application. Also on this tab bar are things such as integration with PhoneGap, Alpha Cloud, and another really important one, which is Alpha Launch. Those are more advanced items, and we'll be covering those in future courses here. So we have our main menu, we have our tab bar, which has both actions and indicators. We have our navigation area here. One other important one I want to highlight while we're here is the help system. If you click here and go to Open Documentation, that will launch your default web browser and take you directly to the Alpha documentation site. This is your primary location for all help information. In here is curated information that all the latest and greatest information is available to you about Alpha, including how-tos, user guides, our video library, and release notes, which have all the detailed information on there. Also built into this is the ability to report an issue. So if you find a piece of documentation that's either missing or doesn't look right, you can report that and the team will focus on getting that cleaned up and taken care of for you. So very helpful. I would in fact go ahead and bookmark this site to have it available for whenever you need to search for information during your development process. I'm going to return back into our Web Projects control panel, and then we'll move on to our next step, which is going to be to start to create our core user experience device, which is the UX component. Our mobile application is going to be data-driven. Specifically, we're going to be using the information in a database to populate and have that available out in the field. So what we'd like to do first is make a connection to that database. And to do so, at the Web Project control panel, select Tools, Alpha DAO Connection Strings. You'll notice this opens up our Alpha DAO connections. There are currently no connection strings that are available. And a connection string is basically a connector that shows the Alpha system what kind of database and where that database is located. So click the New button. Let's go ahead and call this CONN. That can be called anything you want. CONN is basically a standard that we've been using for some time. So click Build next to Connection String. This will open up our Connection String Builder. You'll notice that it is currently selected to access. But let me go ahead and show you. I'm going to click the 3 ellipsis button here. And you'll notice that there's a wider range of connections that are available to your system. Both traditional databases, modern NoSQL databases, and now, very interesting enough, Web API-oriented data sources that you'll be able to use within your system. Go ahead and click Cancel. We're going to use the Access database that was provided. Click File Name, and that's the little folder next to that. What you want to do is navigate to our folder. You'll notice it's already navigated here. In fact, I'll click here and it'll show you that I'm in my documents in Alpha Anywhere V12 and my folder I created earlier. And this is where we copied our database in. So I'm going to go ahead and select that database that's in our folder and click Open. You'll notice then it's starting to build the connection string. You can see first it's telling what kind of connection is, in this case an access file, and then in this case the file name. Note if you have passwords or other elements, you can handle that all within this connection string builder. Let's go ahead and make sure that is working properly by clicking Test Connection. This will make a quick call to that database and make sure that Alpha Anywhere can contact and talk to that database. Always really important before you get farther in your development process is to make sure your environment is stable and ready to go. Go ahead and click OK. Click OK. And we have now created our first connection string. You can click OK here, and you'll see now in the Alpha DAO connections, we have a new connection name and the string that's associated with it there. We're done in this area, so let's go ahead and click close. And now we can move on to our next step of the process. The core of our mobile application will be something called a UX component. And in our case, there will really be just a single component we'll need to build for the training today. To do so, click Web Components. This will take you to the Web Components area. You'll notice we don't have any yet. Up near the left-hand corner, you'll see there's a New button. Click New. You'll notice that there's a wide range of things you can create within the system. In our case, we're focusing on web components, so select Web Component and click Next. Also within the system, there are a wider range of different types of components. You have grids, you have tabbed UI builders, which are navigation tools. You also have things like Google Maps, image galleries, calendars, etc. For our purposes, let's go ahead and click UX. That's what we're looking for. And click Next. Now, one of the nice things about Alpha is that it provides a large number of off-the-shelf templates that are ready to go. These help you save time in terms of generating your application. We're going to go ahead and use one of those templates for our application today. But I wanted to let you know you can also create your own templates. So if you're doing a number of different mobile applications that have similar structures, you can create one, save it as a template, and then rapidly create a new version of it by using the templated concept. So you can include your own templates and you can provide those to other people. I'm going to go ahead and scroll down a little bit. And the template that I would like to use is mobile app framework underscore panel navigator underscore with underscore tab buttons using control bars. So make sure you select that one. Again, mobile app framework panel navigator with tab buttons using control bars. This is a really handy one that I've used before. Click OK. This will open up a help window, just to kind of give you a little description about what the UX looks like. And then over on the left-hand side, you can see right away that it has built a number of controls for my UX for me automatically. Therefore, I don't have to start from scratch. Big time saver and very helpful. Click Close. At this time, I want to go ahead and save this UX. So up in the left-hand corner, click the Save button and type main underscore UX. Main is going to be the name of it. I always append the type of control, whether it's a grid or a UX or whatever it happens to be, as a standard process because it makes it easier when I'm working with these files on the file system. And then click Save. You'll notice now that, in our case, the UX has been saved. You'll see down below, our tab here is called main underscore UX because you can have multiple controls open and working at one time. You'll also notice at top, it's showing me what control I'm using on or what component I'm working on by giving the name here. We can actually go ahead and look at this and see how it operates right away. Built into the Alpha Anywhere development environment is something called a working preview. So I'm going to click Working Preview here. Think of it as a built-in simulator. So you'll see the moment I click Working Preview, I now see a representation of my UX component running inside of a simulated phone. And I can actually see what it looks like in different phones and devices by, say, let's look at what it looks like in an iPad by clicking this drop-down box. Now, again, we're not actually running that kind of component here. It's a visual indicator, but the nice thing about it is that it gives you a feel for what your app is going to look like once it's running on the mobile device. So I'm going to return back to iPhone vertical. One other thing while we're here is you'll notice down below it says, I am currently using Chrome. Behind the scenes, we actually use a web browser to render this information. And I'm going to go ahead and click on this button here. So you can see that you can use either Internet Explorer or Chrome, and you can select which one you want to use kind of behind the scenes. I tend to use Chrome. It's a lot more standard, and there's a lot of other tools that you will be able to use in the future for doing debugging, etc. But you can pick either one. It's really up to you, and your specific environment may dictate only using one of those two. So let me go back into Working Preview. And you'll see we have a full working app. So a couple things. You'll notice that I have a content area in the middle called Panel 1, and as I click these buttons down below, the content changes. This is called a panel metaphor. Basically, you have a panel that includes content, and you can swap that in and out of view with the user to show what is important to them at that particular time. Surrounding this is something called a panel navigator that is the traffic cop that manages that. You'll also notice in our template we have a drop-down menu here. This is actually called a control bar, and we'll spend some time exploring that in a little bit. But you'll notice that I have a drop-down menu, and if I select an item there, in this case it runs a little piece of JavaScript that shows a message. But it could do many other more powerful things, and you have complete control over that. So I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to return to my design environment. So I want to do a real quick overview. You'll notice that we have built our first UX component. We used a template. That template brought in a panel navigator and a set of panel cards. Each of these panel cards has a specific content that is shown. And since we're using a panel navigator, only one of these cards will be shown at one time. You'll also notice that it created a header area up top called panel header and included in there a control bar. That's what displayed the header text and that drop-down menu. The other is it created a panel footer where it inserted what's another control bar, a second control bar, and that's where we saw the little buttons at the bottom of the screen. Control bars are extremely powerful, and we're going to spend some more time on that in our training, but we'll also have future classes where we really dive into the amazing capabilities that are within a control bar. Now that we have our template ready to go, we're ready to start modifying it. We're going to do a couple quick tasks right off the bat. First, you'll notice we have both a panel header with a control bar and a panel footer with a control bar. For this training, we're only going to be using the panel header control bar, which has the menu system. So what we want to do is go ahead and delete the panel footer and control bar that's there. So either click and shift click, or you can do a click drag to select panel footer container 2, the control bar, and panel footer end container 2. Once those are selected, click the X button here, not the X button with the multiple lines, but the X button. This will then delete those items from your system. Now that we have that removed, we can go ahead and make some other adjustments. You'll notice when Alpha generated the template, it created a series of panel cards, panel card 1, 2, 3, and 4. And it used the nomenclature panel card _1, panel card _2, etc. And that's nice, but in our case, what we want to do is take a few moments, and this is a very, very powerful and very important design practice, is to give these names of these panel cards something a little bit easier to understand. And you'll see later on when we start doing navigation, etc., by having named panel cards, things go much simpler. So follow with me, click panel card 1. This is the opening tag. On the right-hand side, you'll notice that we have a properties area. And the second item of our properties area is called ID. So this is the specific name of this control. Go ahead and click the ellipsis button here and type PC _home. And I like to use uppercase, PC _home. So PC is just a shortened version of panel card. Makes readability a little easier. And then I use the underbar or underscore and then the name just to give it a nice visual element. And click OK. Once you've done that, you'll notice that over in the control area, it's now showing the PC _home for both the panel header start and the panel end, and it makes it a lot more easy to read. So we're going to do that real quick. Go ahead and select panel card _2. Click the ID button here, and we're going to call this PC _customer list because we're going to display a list of customers in that panel card. And that's, again, one of the things. You want to kind of name the panel cards with what the content you anticipate to be within there or the content that's going to exist. So click PC underscore customer list and click OK. Let's go ahead and select our panel card number 3, and we're going to change that to, after clicking the ellipsis button, PC customer detail, because we'll show the detail for a customer in that location. So again, PC underscore customer detail. Click OK. And we're ready to do our last and final panel card. So we'll click on panel card underscore 4, go to ID, and we'll call that PC underscore customer map. And as you can anticipate, we'll be adding a map a little later to show you how that works. So now we have removed our panel footer with our control bar, since that's not needed for our application. We've taken the time to go through each of our panel cards and give it a good name for the content that's going to eventually be within that panel card. And after you've done all that, click Save. This will save our component, and we're good to go. In our next section, I want to take a few moments to show you why it is important for you to save on a consistent basis. First and foremost, you don't lose work in progress, but there's another more powerful reason for that, and we'll demonstrate that quickly in our next section. As you're developing your solution using Alpha Anywhere, it's really important that you save your components often. First and foremost, to make sure you don't lose any work in progress. That's reason number 1. But there's a second reason. I'm going to demonstrate that right now. You'll notice that we removed the panel footer container and control bar and renamed all these items here. So I'm going to go ahead and close the UX. And you'll notice we're back at the Web Projects control panel. And you'll notice now we have our main underscore UX component displayed here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on main underscore UX. I'm going to then right click and go down to the menu item Restore Backup. And I'm going to click Restore Backup. You'll notice that it is showing me a list of items in terms of when I have saved it. Now this is a very short list because we basically have our original component that was created, and then when we saved it our second time. On more advanced components, you'll see every time you save a component, it's going to make basically a copy of that component so it's available. So I'm going to go ahead and click on our original version, and notice it gives us a date and timestamp. And I'm going to click Restore this file. This will ask me if I really want to do that. I'm going to click Yes, and it will give me a confirmation that the component was restored. And I'll click OK. Now I'm going to go ahead and reopen my main underscore UX by double clicking on it. And you'll notice the panel footer's back there and the panel naming is the original. So let's say you have an issue where you made a mistake or something isn't working correctly. This allows you to quickly roll back to a previous version and be able to start over at that point or do other things along those lines. It is not a substitute for version control. You can use systems such as Subversion and Git with Alpha, but it's a really handy developer tool because it just happens automatically every time you save. You don't have to think about it. And what's really neat, I'm going to go ahead and close here. I'm going to right click on main UX and go to Restore Backup. And you'll notice that even though I'm back here and it shows me a little green icon to tell me where I'm at, I can actually click this one and click Restore this file. And then this will confirm and let you know it was done. Now when I go back in, it's sort of gone forward in time, and now we have our control bar is gone and panel footer, and the panels are named correctly. So an example of that that's been very helpful for me is, let's say I've been doing some work and I delete some components or make some changes, and then I'm starting to work on other things, and I go, oh, you know what? I really need those components, or I wish I had some of that information, something you did before. Well, what you can do is quickly roll back to that previous version, copy out of that previous version the information, the content you need, then go back up to where you're at, and then quickly put that information in your current release. And that's been very helpful for me. It's something that I want to make sure to stress, that you know that every time you save a component or a grid, it's going to save a version of it so that you can quickly go back or forward depending on what you need for your particular situation. Now that we've cleaned up our UX component by removing the control bar at the bottom and renamed our panel cards, we can go ahead and start building our first controls. Our first task is on our PC_home. This is going to be basically your home page or landing spot for our mobile application. So to start, we're going to go ahead and select Static Text, Panel 1. Click the red X button, and again, be careful not to click the Delete All Objects to remove that. Now, select and make sure that is highlighted the opening tag for PC Home. Then, go over to the Other Controls accordion and select the second item, which is a image control. When you select that, it will insert a new image control in your application between the beginning and ending tags of PC Home. Just in case you happen to insert it at the wrong location, you'll notice that you'll get an error because all controls need to be within panel cards in this structure. If that's the case, all you need to do is move that control back into the panel card you would like, and you're good to go. We'll go ahead and go to the right-hand side of the screen where we have the properties. And you'll notice the first property is type. Currently it's set to static. There's actually a second setting here called dynamic, which allows you to show a number of different images based on the conditions of your UX. In our case, we're going to stick with static, but I want you to know about that because it's very cool. So let's stay static. The second item here is image name. So we'll go ahead and click the ellipsis button, and that will open up our specify image dialog box. You have a number of different examples. You can use SVG icons, which are very powerful, and a large number of them are actually included with Alpha. You can also use CSS icons. You can use an image in your web project or style, which is what we'll do in a few moments. We also have the built-in image and a URL for an external image. But do realize if you use a URL for an external image, that image may not appear if you're disconnected or don't have connectivity. So with image in web project or style selected, click on the select button. This will give you a drop down that allows you to either select from a web project folder or select from a style. Let's click on select from web project folder. This opens up a list of images that are currently in your web project. In this case, we only have the one, which is our original image that we added at the very beginning. So let's go ahead and click there. You'll see you can actually see a preview of the image. It's quite large right now, so it doesn't make much sense. So what we can do is when we actually insert this image onto our UX, we can actually specify a size. And you may want to pre-size this in the future, really up to you. But I'm going to go ahead and go down here to width, and I'm going to click in that box, and I'm going to put 250, and I'm going to leave the type to be pixels, or PX. You can see you can use any standard CSS measure to do that. Now I can click OK. You'll notice that my image name is selected and my width has been selected here. And go ahead and click OK. Let's save our UX. And now let's do a working preview by clicking on Working Preview. As you can see, the image is now being displayed inside my UX. A couple things about it. First, you'll notice it's not centered. It's also a bit large because it's taking up a fair amount of space, especially for small phones. So what I want to do is reduce the size of this just a tad so it looks a little nicer. And I also want to center this logo in the screen. So let's go back to design. With Alpha Sports logo, I'm going to go ahead and double click on that. With Alpha Sports logo, I'm going to go over to the right, and you'll notice under the image style, the current width is 250 pixels. I could go ahead and edit this directly, but let me go ahead and show you. If I click the ellipsis button, this opens up a style editor that allows me to make many different choices. In our case, since it's an image, I'm just going to go down here till I get to the width parameter that is under the positioning and style, or size. I'm going to go ahead and select 175, and I'm going to keep it to pixels. Note, you can also use percentages if you would like. There's many different ways you can specify this width. It really depends on the aesthetics you're trying to achieve. Note, all of this renders into HTML commands, so you can use any kind of standard HTML styling to apply to things like images and text, etc. And let's click OK. So now our width is 175, so it's going to scale down a little bit more. But let's actually also make sure this is centered on the page. So to do that, we're going to use a very powerful capability called a container. So on the left-hand side, I'm going to go over here to where it says containers. And once I've expanded containers, you'll notice there's something here called the container, and I'm going to click on that. This opens up to insert a container. And you'll notice that it's going to insert both an opening and closing tag. Basically, containers are hidden fields that the things within it are acted on. So in our case, you can see there's a large number of different types of containers. And we're going to be covering almost all of these in future trainings, but today we're just going to pick one, which is alignment. So again, with these two checked and alignment, go ahead and click that to be selected. Notice if you want to, you can click Explain Different Container Types, and this opens up a little help that shows you more about the containers. Plus, you can click here to watch a video. One thing I would like to do is I'm going to insert around because I want the containers to be around my Alpha Sports logo image. So I'm going to click Insert Around. And you'll notice now that it has inserted an opening and closing tag. It has a specific color that's associated with that type of container. And you'll notice that it's given its own name. And you can see on the right-hand side, we have properties for this container. So if you'll notice, the one key property I want to get to is the container alignment, which is left. And you'll go ahead and select that to say center. So that means this container right here, anything inside of it will be centered within that container. Let's click Save, and let's go to Working Preview. Now you'll notice something here. I thought this would be centered. Well, the issue is this. There's actually a hidden container around this. But the container only goes this wide because the default behavior of a container is just to be as wide as the content within it. So let's go back into the design. Let's go to our alignment container opening tag. And again, you'll notice the container width is empty. So therefore, it's going to be only as wide as what's inside of it, which in this case is the image we're selecting. So to modify that, go ahead and go here and type in 100%. This is saying that we want this container to be 100% of the width of the screen that it's being displayed on. Click Save. Let's go into Working Preview. This is more like it. We're starting to see that now our container is 100% of the width, and within that, it's centering this image. Now notice something. This is the key aspect of using containers and responsive layout. I'm going to change this to a horizontal representation of an iPhone 4. Well, you'll notice that the container width is now this much, and Alpha Sports is properly centered inside that container. In fact, if I go up to, say, an iPad, even here. So the powerful aspect is no matter what environment you're running on, it's going to look nice. It's going to line up properly. And that's the reason we use alignments or containers to do this, because they can understand what the current width of the screen they're on and then expand or contract themselves accordingly. And since we've told it that the container alignment is center, then any content within that container will be properly centered. As you can see, there's a little trial and error, but once you have it down, you'll be able to create very beautiful interfaces that look and act the way you want them to be. We would now like to add a series of buttons to the home panel card to allow the person to navigate and do other tasks within the system. To do so, we're going to use the button control. So to start, make sure you're clicking and highlighting the alignment container end for our alignment container, because we're going to put our buttons in the panel card PC Home, but below our area where we have our logo. So go over to Other Controls Expander, and you'll notice the third item here is Button. So click that 3 times. And each time you click that, it's going to add a button into the user interface. So now we have 3 buttons, and they're all currently called Button. So our first step is to take each of these buttons and give them better display names. So first item to do is click Button, go over here to the button properties where it says button text, and go ahead and type customers. This button will take us to a list of our customers. Once you've done that, you can now select the second button by clicking on it. And then here we want to change the button text to New Customer. The last step we want to do is highlight the third button and modify the button text to Synchronize Customer. This will allow us to, in the future, synchronize the data on our local machine or local mobile platform to the backend server. So now we have our 3 buttons. Let's go ahead and take a look at what they look like. Now remember, click Save to save it, and then go into Working Preview. So you'll notice now we have a logo and 3 buttons. And you'll notice each of these buttons currently have a width basically the same size as the text, and they're left aligned. I'm going to go ahead and change us back to our iPhone vertical so it kind of gives you a little better look here. Now what I would like to do is have these buttons centered on the center below alpha. So there's 2 methods we can do that. First method, we can go here and put it into our alignment container, but I actually have a different method. It's a much easier method. Click on Button Customers and go over to the Properties area and select Width. And remember, if you have a problem finding the property, that one's easy. You can always click the Properties button right here and search for the property you're looking for. And by clicking on that, it'll take you where it is. So go ahead and click 100%, because what we would like to do is have this button be 100% of the width of the screen that's displayed. Makes it easy to hit. So let's go ahead and click Working Preview to check that out. And you'll see now our customer button is nicely aligned in the screen and takes up the whole width. So if you click anywhere on here, it's going to select the customer area there. Now we'd like to go ahead and apply that to our other 2 buttons. So let's return into the design environment. And we could go through and set the width on each of these buttons, but there's a nice little shortcut built into the IDE to help us out on this. So select Customers, select the property that we have set already, which is width, and then find the little eyedropper icon on the control bar here. Go ahead and click that. This will open up our select controls, and so you'll notice that it shows us currently for that property what the value are, and you can see the value for the properties for New Customer and Synchronized Customer is empty. So go ahead and either shift click or click drag for those 2 buttons, and then down here click Set Properties. What that does is actually copy the property we selected to those other controls. So if I click on New Customer here, you'll notice now my width is 100%. So once you have one control laid out and working perfectly, you can quickly add the same parameter to other controls in a very quick method. Let's click Save, and let's take a look at our working preview. You'll notice now that all 3 of our buttons are nicely highlighted. They are all centered on the device and center aligned from a text basis. Now we can go in here and we can actually change to say vertical to horizontal, and you'll notice that the buttons automatically lay them out to use the size. And that's, again, part of the responsive nature of the development environment, is that once you lay these out, they're going to look good on any platform that you may decide to run the actual applicate on. So let's go back to iPhone 4 vertical and return to design. Now there's one other thing I'd like to do. I'd really like to jazz these buttons up because I'd like to make a sort of graphical element to them. So what we're going to do is add some icons to these buttons so they look a little nicer. So to do so, select Customers, go over to the right-hand side in the Properties, and find Button Layout. You'll notice currently it says Text Only. Click the drop-down box and select Image followed by Text. This then changes here, the area or properties here. You'll notice that you can set a whole bunch of different classes and other things to completely control the look and feel of your buttons. But you'll notice one here called Image Name. And let's go ahead and click on that ellipsis button on Image Name. This brings up our image selector, much like we did with the image control. You can pick an image you import, so you can import your own icons. You can use CSS icon, but we highly recommend you use SVG icons. Let's go ahead and show you how to do that. Click SVG icon. It changes the selection environment. You'll notice over here we have a select button, so I'm going to click there. And you'll notice that Alpha has included a large set of SVG icons in the development environment. So they're built in, ready to go, and ready to use. Now, SVG icons are very powerful for two reasons. One is that there are an enormous amount of icons out there, so it's really easy for you to find very nice looking icons for your application. The second is that it's called scalable vector graphics. So SVG is scalable, meaning that you can increase the size and reduce the size of these icons, and they always look good. Very handy. So type in, let's say, I can go ahead and search right here. You can actually filter from here. Say, let's type person, or let's try people. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. And so you'll notice by using the filter, these icons have been tagged. And I'm going to select this icon right here. And you'll notice this is the actual text that describes what that icon is. You can actually increase the size of the icon, change colors, etc. There's a lot of flexible things you can do that make it very, very easy to manipulate to make it look the way you want it. Click OK. This now puts this in, and click OK once again. And now you'll notice our image name is now showing that SVG icon descriptor. Click Save. We can now go into Working Preview. And you'll notice now our button has a nice little icon in front of it and also has the text associated with it. You can kind of mix and match however you want for your particular application. I'm going to go ahead and add two other icons here because I want it consistent. First, for new customer, I'm going to add a plus button. And then for synchronized customers, I'm going to add kind of a recycling. So let's go back into Design. Select New Customer. Our first step is to change the layout type from text only to image followed by text. Then that will now show our image name property. Select that. Click SVG icon. This will take us into the SVG area. Click Select. And in this case, I'm going to type again people. Let's try person. There we go. And notice there's a cool one. There's a person with a little plus icon. That's exactly what I'm looking for because it's the idea of adding a new customer into the system. So I'm going to click there. This puts our icon descriptor here. Click OK. And now that is the new icon for that button. Now what I'm going to do is go Synchronize Customer. I'm going to perform the same steps. Select the button. Select the layout, image followed by text, and then select the image name by clicking on the ellipsis button next to image name. Again, I'm going to use SVG icons. I'm going to go into here and select this. And let's go ahead and find a good one here. Let's try sync. You'll notice we have a little synchronization here. So let's go ahead and select this first one. It looks like a cloud and it has kind of a synchronized image. And we'll click OK. And we'll click OK. Now we've selected those icons. Let's save our component. Let's do our working preview. And you'll notice now that we have three nice looking icons that match the name of it. Really good for multilingual type apps. Now, currently, these buttons don't do anything, but we've got the visual representation ready to go and mocked up. So now we can dig in a little bit more and discuss what is actually going to happen in these buttons. Now that we've added some navigation buttons to our home page, we can dive into how we can actually make these buttons do something. As you can tell, we have a button, but when we click on it, nothing happens. What I'd like it to actually do is when you click on the button, I want it to go to our second panel card, which will contain a customer list. That customer list doesn't exist yet, but we can go ahead and set up the navigation. So to do so, let's go back into Design. Let's go ahead and go to Customers and select the button Customer. Over in the Properties section, I'm going to scroll down, and you'll notice I'm going to get to an area called JavaScript-Touch, Mouse, and Pointer Events. This is where we can add behaviors to this button or to other items in the control system. You can see there's a whole bunch of different behaviors. The primary one is the click event. Now, when you're working with a mobile device, a tap is equivalent to a click event when you're on a mobile device. Now, to edit the behavior for this button, we will open up the click event by clicking the 3 ellipsis button. Now, I want to show you this opens up our editor where we can edit our click event, but I want to also show you there's a shortcut. With buttons, all you need to do is double click on it, and it will immediately open up the edit click event as if you had gone over here and found it. So that's a nice shortcut to be able to quickly go in and edit buttons. Now we're in the edit click event. You'll see at the top there are 3 separate modes. Below we have also some controls, and then we have some other information at the bottom. Let's start from the top. There are 2 primary ways, well 3 primary ways. We mainly use the first 2. Won't really cover the server-side XBasic. There are better ways to handle that now. But first is through Action JavaScript, and we're going to be using that dominantly through this because in that case, Alpha will do all the work to allow you to add behaviors to your system without coding, which is a really powerful technique. But you'll notice there's a second mode here, which is called text mode. In here, it opens up an editor. In here, I can just type any kind of JavaScript that I would like. So I don't have to use Alpha's built-in Action JavaScript. I can add my own JavaScript. You can, in fact, bring in third-party libraries and other capabilities. It's very flexible and very easy to do. In fact, in here, we also have different data in terms of built-in Alpha-specific JavaScript actions, and we'll explore those a little later. But we have a wide range of capabilities built into the system to add behaviors to different items in your user interface. As we mentioned, what I'd like to do for now is I'm going to go ahead and delete this. I want this to empty. I'm going to click on Action JavaScript. This, again, is where we're going to spend most of our time. I'm going to click the button Add New Action because I would like to add a Action JavaScript when a person clicks this button. When I open that up, you'll see our Action JavaScript selector has opened. As you can see, there's a wider range of Action JavaScript handling just an incredible breadth of capabilities. On the left, you'll see these are the categories of them. So if I wanted to find out something in regards to reports, I would click here, and this basically filters my actions to things that are associated with reports. If I wanted to look at things that were used with PhoneGap, we can do that here. And of course, all actions show all actions here. Now, the other aspect I can do is I can use this filter list to filter it. So if I am interested in, say, reports, I can type report, and you'll see that it quickly filters it down to the Action JavaScripts that apply to a report situation. Now, for our case, we are going to be doing what's called a panel action because we want to do a navigation between one panel to another. So I'm going to go into Filter List. I'm going to type the word panel. And as you can see, it's now filtered it down to 3 items: panel actions, show panel overlay, and hide and close a panel overlay window. This is the one I want, and this is the one you're going to use extensively, the panel actions. So I'm going to go ahead and double click on that. Now that I've done that, it will open up a sub dialog box called Panel Actions. And this is where I can actually now tailor what I want to happen. So as you can see, the first question it's asking me is, what is the action name? So I'm going to click the drop down box, And you're going to see that there's a wider range of sort of actions that you can take on panels. And the one I would like is called Set Active Panel. That basically will take a panel, especially in a panel navigator, and set it as the active panel and bring it into view. Now that I've selected Set Active Panel as the action name, it's now asking me what is my target panel. So in this case, we have a drop-down that gives us a list of all of our target panels that are available. Now notice that since we took the time to name our panels, it's easy to figure out which one we want to go to. In our case, we want to go to the customer list. If I hadn't named it, you kind of have to remember what's panel card 1, 2, 3, etc. So that's why we highly recommend you take the time to name your panels up front, because then life gets easier when you get to this point. So I'm going to select customer list. Now I have one more option, which is called animate, which I'm going to leave enabled. Basically, that will animate the process of one panel being displayed. Sometimes you may not want that. You may want it just to be instantaneous. It's really up to you in terms of your user interface design. So I'm going to now click OK. Once I've clicked OK, it allows me to enter a comment, which I will do. I will go navigate to customer list. This is not required, but highly recommended. And the reason why is over time you can actually have multiple actions put in one button, and this gives you an idea of what's happening within each action. So this is highly recommended, and I would leave it on and take the time to do it. It really helps you out later on when you're testing and debugging. Once you've done this, we can now click Save. I'm going to go ahead and save our main component here. Click on Working Preview, and now we can go inside and test out our new button action. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Customers, and when I click on Customers, you'll see that we have navigated to our second panel. It's currently showing the static text that was there. And now we have our easy navigation system. And that's really the core concept between panel cards. You will be setting the active panel card to show what particularly is of interest to the user at any one time. Now you'll notice I'm in panel 2. If I want, I can kind of click and drag, because currently the mode is I can swipe to go from one panel to another. But I actually want to add a more formal way to do so. And what I'd like to be able to do is actually up here in the control bar, you'll notice we have a menu. So I want to be able to have a menu item, specifically menu number 1, that is my home menu item. So when I click on menu 1, instead of showing just a JavaScript alert, it will perform essentially the same action of navigating back to the home page or home panel card. And that's what we're going to cover next. Click on the Design tab to move back into Design. At the top of our panels, we have our control bar control. And that's where the menu and other items are contained within it. And you can almost think of the control bar as kind of a whole little universe in and of itself. Specifically, it's a single component on your UX, but has a lot of wealth of capability built into it. And that's on purpose. When people originally were developing with Alpha Anywhere, you would still use a panel header, but you would end up with tons of controls up here. So it often made it a little confusing. In our case, we can encapsulate all of those controls and capabilities and a lot of other special things inside the control bar. So let's go ahead and explore the control bar. You can do it one of two ways. You can either double click on control bar, or over on the right hand side in the properties, you can click on control bar properties. And that will open up our control bar editor. And you'll see there's a series of tabs. These tabs contain different information about your control bar, and then each of the tab has a set of content available. When you first open it, you're going to be on the items. What items are the discrete individual elements that make up a control bar. So for instance, our case, we have a menu button, we have the actual menu items below it, we have some text up there. Each of those items each of those elements are items. So for instance, when I click on HTML1 here, you'll notice it just has some text here called My App. And then you have a series of menu items here. Now, items are combined together in what are called layouts. So I'm going to go over here to this tab right here called Control Bar Layout, and I'm going to click on that. You'll notice that I have two layouts in here. One called Layout 1, which is our default, and you see that in the system already. And you'll notice the layout has a preview down here. This shows you what the layout's going to look like. And you'll notice it includes a menu button here and a piece of HTML text. And you can actually see right here is the structure of our layout. You'll see there is the menu in the before section. The middle is our HTML text. And then the after currently is blank. There's nothing in our after there. And notice the nomenclature, before, middle, after. It doesn't say left, right, center. And the reason why is control bars can not only be horizontal, but vertical. And if you're vertical, then left, right, center doesn't make any sense. So again, you have a series of items, and then they're laid out into a layout. Or those items are then put on a layout in a certain order. I'm going to go ahead and click on Menu Layout. Now this is a special layout that's associated with the menu bar. When you click the menu icon, it will pop down and then you'll see a set of items in here. So think of it as almost like a sub layout. And as you can see right here, you have the before section, which has these menu items all in this left-hand side. And I'm going to go ahead and double click on that. And you'll see in our edit layout line, all of these menu items are here versus middle and after. And that's how we get the effect of having everything lined up on the left-hand side. So for our purposes right now, what we would like to do is change both the icon and the name of this menu and also the behavior. So in order to do that, we don't actually change that here. This is just where the item is on the layout. We go back to items. We identify the item we want to change, which in our case is menu item number 1, and we select that in the items section. So as you can see, here's the name of that item, sort of its identifier. And then I'm going to scroll down a little bit farther and you're going to see this is my button settings. So you can see the button layout is image followed by a text, very similar to what you saw when we were doing the buttons on the main UX home panel card. You'll notice the icon is currently a common icon. So let's change that one first. So select icon, click the ellipsis button. This will open up our specify image, and this is again, same as you've done before. And you'll notice our current image is sort of an icon, sort of a comment icon. So click select. And what I would like to do is click in filter here and type the word home. And you'll see we have a nice home icon that we can use so that it signifies going back to the home panel card. Select that and click OK. So now we're going to use that image instead of the little common image and click OK. Now we've changed the icon, but we also want to change the text that's displayed. So if you look down just a little bit farther, you're going to see, here's my button text. And I can just go ahead and edit that button text from menu to home. So now I have a new icon and new text. As you can see, you have a huge amount of ability to modify the look and feel by using CSS to make your menu look any way you want it. And so this is the standard menu structure, but you can go ahead and add your own CSS and make it look a lot differently. So we've done our first task, which is making the menu item look differently. And in fact, we can check that. Let's go to Control Bar Layout, and you'll notice, we're on menu layout here, and it's showing us our existing item, which now has the home icon and the home text on it there. So as you can see, after you do items, the layouts just grab what is there and displays it on the screen for you. Now we have one other task we need to do. We actually want, when the person clicks on home, not to show an alert. We would actually like to have it navigate back to our PC_home location. So now we can go back to our items. And the way that works is that when you have a control bar item, you'll notice, and I'm going to scroll back up, there are item actions. So this basically determines when someone does one of these actions on that item, wherever that is in the control bar, then perform a specific action. And if I click on here, you'll see that I currently have a list of 4 actions. These were created automatically for me when I created this template in this control bar. So let's go ahead and click cancel here. And you'll notice then again, I'm relating an action to an event on a specific item. if we look up here on the tab bar, you'll see that there is a tab called Actions. This is where we actually manage those actions. Now you might be asking, and I want to cover this right now, why not just put the code or whatever it happens to be right here, like JavaScript or whatever it happens to be? Well, the power is you can create actions that can be reused over and over on multiple items. So you may have the same piece of JavaScript, maybe the same action JavaScript you want to perform in different scenarios. You don't have to recreate that. You can create primary actions and then associate those actions with one or more items. So it actually makes maintainability much higher. So let's go to Actions. I'm going to click on action number 1. That's the action that's currently associated with that item. And you'll notice that this is just JavaScript. So by default, it's going to show you JavaScript. And you'll see there is just a simple JavaScript alert to pop up a message on there. I won't go into detail. We'll do this in future trainings. But you can see that actually there are a bunch of defaulted information that's in here that we can apply. So when we get to more sophisticated steps, not only can you just put in JavaScript, but there is certain information you can access about this particular action, and more importantly, the item that was clicked, to be able to make your scripts very, very powerful. Now, let's go ahead and use the easy method to create our navigation. And this is going to be very familiar because we just did it. You'll notice up top right here, we have Action JavaScript. And I'm going to go ahead and click on that button here. And you'll notice when I click on there, you have two options. One is to create or edit a JavaScript action, or the second one is to insert code to run a JavaScript action. In our case, we want to create a new piece of JavaScript action that will allow us to do the navigation. So click Create Edit JavaScript Action. This will open up our JavaScript actions. We can now click Add New Actions, and let's call it Navigate Home, since that's what this action is going to do. So again, what we did is clicked Add New Action and then typed Navigate Home and click OK. This will now tell you that we've created an action, but there's nothing in it. It's an empty action. So it's telling we need to go ahead and actually add some behavior to that action. So click OK. So you'll notice now we have our new action JavaScript called Navigate Home. It's got a little red icon that says the action has not been defined. So now what we can do is click Edit Action. And we're now back to our edit event, i.e. our action JavaScript. So very similarly, when we double clicked on the button and got right here, we kind of have to go through a single step to set up our action and then add to it. So I'm going to go ahead and click Add New Action. This opens up our Select an Action. I'm going to type Panel, and we have our panel actions. I'm going to double click on that. This opens up now the detailed dialog for panel actions. I'm going to select from the action Set Active Panel, and the target panel I would like to select is PC Home. So almost identical to the home button, or to the button we added on the home page. We just click OK, and I'm going to put in here Navigate Home. So we have a description of what this action JavaScript does. And now we have our action JavaScript done. Once you see this, we can click Save. And now you'll notice that our action JavaScript has gone from red to green. That means that this is available and it has been configured so it actually does something. Go ahead and click OK. And now we're back here. Now you'll notice, unlike the button, we have one other step that we need to do. So we've defined our action JavaScript, but we haven't actually, it's just there. Nothing's going to happen. Currently, when action 1 occurs, like when someone selects the item, the click event on the item, it's going to do this alert. So the first thing we need to do is get rid of that. We don't need that anymore. So select and highlight that and just delete it. Now what we want to have happen is when this action is triggered, we want it to run that action JavaScript we just created. So let's go ahead and go up to Action JavaScript again, click on it, and then click on Insert Code to run a JavaScript action. This will then open up a browser for us to select it because we may have multiple ones that are available. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to click Navigate Home, and I'm going to click OK. And you'll notice now that it's inserted a little piece of JavaScript that will find the action navigate home and run that action. So when you're in here, it's kind of a two-step. You'll want to use your action JavaScript builder to build your actions, and then you just have to remember to make sure to insert the code to run it in here, because this little piece of code here triggers that action. So we have our item. We've changed its icon and its button text. We are still associating it with action number 1. And in there, we went into action number 1. We created our action JavaScript, and we inserted the code to run that action JavaScript. So we're good to go. So let's click OK. Make sure to save your UX at this point in time. Now we go into our working preview. We're at our home here. I'm going to click Customers. That takes us to panel card number 2. And now when I click the drop-down menu here, you'll notice we now have a home icon / button. And when I select that, it returns us back to our home page. So the basics of our navigation are now in place. We can enhance that significantly. There are other neat things we can do with it, but we have now the ability to navigate to another part of our application by using action JavaScript on a button. And conversely, we now have a master menu where we can select items and perform the same kind of navigation to go to the location. One other note about how this action JavaScript works, and I want to cover this real quickly. I'm going to go back into design. And over here, you'll notice there's an icon here called JavaScript Actions. If I click on that, you'll notice it opens up our JavaScript actions. And sure enough, there's our navigate home. So if we need to actually change or modify this action, we don't actually have to go into the control bar and then go to the action, go all through that. All of these actions are available at this point in time, which leads to maintainability. Instead of digging through buttons and everything else, you can find them right here. And that's actually a very powerful paradigm, is that when you create JavaScript actions, you may even want to create an action and then associate it to a button. So if you'll notice, if I go into my button right here, the JavaScript action is right here. But I could have easily created my JavaScript action here and then just merely called it from this button. And therefore, what you're doing is you're starting to centralize all of your behaviors in single spots. And that's a very powerful idea. So not needed for our training for this particular course, but it's something to keep in mind, that by putting in these JavaScript actions in one place, you're going to find out that it's easier to maintain, easier to make more sophisticated interfaces as you move along from there. So I'm going to click OK. We now have the basics of our navigation in place, and now we can focus on actually displaying customer information in our app in the next section. The goal of our mobile application is to allow the Alpha Sports team out in the field to be able to access customer information and also update that information. They need to be able to do this both online and offline. To facilitate that, we're going to use a very powerful control built into Alpha called the list control, which is going to handle all of the nitty-gritty details for you. So let's go ahead and start adding that into the system. Step number 1 is go to PC_customer list. This is where we're going to show our list. Select static text panel 2 and click the red X to remove that. We now have an empty panel card for PC customer list. Next, find the list control on the left-hand side. This will be under the Data Controls accordion. So click List, and this will open up your new control. Now, you may see this when you open it up, depending on the configuration or the last time you updated your system. In our case, what I would like to do is click on Create Multiple New Controls at Once. So make sure that's highlighted, and then you'll see this here. So I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to type the word List Customers. So we're building a list, and it's going to be for customer information. You'll notice down below that there is a List Control Quick Setup Genie. This is a very handy tool, and we're going to use that to accelerate building our list. So after you've put in List Customers, click on List Control Quick Setup Genie. This will open up our list builder. You'll notice that it's assuming we're going to go to a SQL backend. So we're going to go ahead, and the first thing we're going to do is under connection string, we're going to tell it what connection string we're going to use to get our data. So click on the ellipsis button and select CONN and click OK. So now the system knows what data connection we're going to be using. The method for defining the queries, we're going to use fields from a table, but you'll notice you can also create your own custom SQL statements. It's really up to you. Let's go ahead and click Cancel here, and we'll leave it as fields from table. Go ahead and click the ellipsis button for table name, and this will open up our browser that actually shows us within our data set what tables are available. And what I would like to do is locate the customer table, and that's the first one here. Notice you can show views and tables, so if you have a more complicated database structure, you can see all the elements that are existing within that. So select Customer and click OK. The next step, you'll notice that it automatically has identified that customer ID is the primary key. And so it understands what kind of data is available in that database. Next, we'll go to Field List. Let's click the Open button here, and you'll notice that it's showing all of the different fields that are available within our table. So our purposes here, we're really only interested in a subset of those fields for the purposes here. And those are the following: customer list, or customer ID, first name, last name, company, phone, fax, and then I also want to put in their billing address information. I'm going to leave off their shipping address information, although that could easily be included. I do also want to include an email. So customer ID through bill country and email are the particular fields for this application that we would like to add to the system, and click OK. You'll notice that now we have our table and our field list, and you'll notice also that Alpha is in the process, and I'll go ahead and open this up, of building a SQL query to extract that information from the backend system. In fact, I can test that by clicking Execute Query, and it'll return the data, so we can make sure everything's going from there. And you can, of course, use this to alter and modify it so it's exactly what you need for your particular application. Let me go ahead and click OK, and we have our there. A couple other things. We're not going to add that now, but you can filter this so that, for instance, let's say you had different salespeople with different regions. You could say only give a customer in this region to these people, or something along those lines. You can also order the columns so that they come back in a specific order on the screen. So all of that, and really all it's doing is building a SQL query behind the scenes. Now, we want them to be able to not only see a list of customers, but also see the detail for each of those customers and edit them. To do that, we're going to use the detail view. So click the plus button, and you'll notice currently it says has detail view, and enable that by selecting the checkbox. When you do that, it's going to add some other field or some other elements that you can select. We're going to leave these all defaulted, but you can modify these in future releases or future implementations. But let's just leave the defaults for now. Let's also go down here to disconnected operation. And what I'd like you to do is, you'll notice that the first item here is persist list data to local storage. And I'm going to go ahead and click that to enable it. This is super powerful. This basically enables all the functionality that allows the system to call the backend data source, bring that data down to the mobile device, and then allow you to interact with that data and then sync it back to the back end all automatically just by merely clicking that little checkbox there. So we have gone through this, a quick recap. We've selected the connection string. We said we just wanted fields from a table, in our case, the customer table. We selected the specific fields we wanted for this application. We also told it that we needed a detail view because we want to be able to interact with that data. And last but not least, we wanted to persist this list data to local storage so we could truly create an offline application. Notice down here, if this is a common kind of structure, you can save these settings and, much like templates, be able to save and restore them on a quick and dirty basis. So some enhancements in terms of your productivity. For now, click OK. You'll notice that the system will take a moment, and behind the scenes, it will automatically generate a structure for you and insert components into the system. So you'll notice first and foremost, we have our new list called List Customers. Since we said it had a detail view, you'll notice that we have a container here. And in that container there has a field for each of the data elements that we selected. It also has a placeholder to show errors if there's any errors that occur. And then it also went ahead and created some buttons for us automatically, so we don't have to know how to put those buttons together. So it's a huge time saver. Now, let's go ahead and do the following. You'll notice that we're in PC Customer List. We're showing both the list and the detail, and that is not really going to work out well in a mobile solution. So I'd like you to do the following. Click and highlight Container 1 through the end tag. So I want to make sure you have Container 1, and you can click and drag all the way down to the end tag. So you're basically selecting everything in our detail view. Then I would like you to do is go up here to our icon bar and click the Move Down One Row. You'll notice that this moves all of the controls down one row. The first time you do it, it takes a little bit longer, but you'll notice now it's down there. So we've moved these controls out of the customer list panel card, but you'll notice that it's not inside our panel card customer detail. In fact, there's an error there saying that we have an error because these containers and these controls all need to be within a panel card. So go ahead and click the down arrow one more time. And you'll notice now our customer detail is located within our panel card and our errors have gone away. Our customer list will be in one panel card and all of our detail fields will be in another panel card from there. Let's go ahead and test run this. Click Save. Click Working Preview. And you'll notice we'll be at our home page. We'll go ahead and select Customers. And you'll notice, not pretty, but we have an operating system. You'll see here, and it's probably not hard, it's probably hard to see, but it has basically pulled back all of our customers, each one to a row, and all of that data is available. I'm going to go ahead and click on one of these, and I'm going to click and drag here in the white space. And you'll notice it has actually filled out our detail view on our third panel card with the information from that client. So let me go back. Let me select a different row here, and I'll go back again. So all the wiring is done for you. So we don't have to worry about wiring up controls and binding them and do all those other things. That's going to be handled by the system. Now, as you can see, this is not what we want. It's not presenting like a mobile application here. It's also not navigating correctly. So our next steps is to really clean up our user interface to make it look sharp and to operate like a mobile application. To start our cleanup process, let's focus on the display of the list information. You'll notice that it's giving a field label, and then we have kind of a tabular Excel-like structure, which really does not lend itself well to a mobile platform. So we're going to focus on cleaning that up. Let's return to the design environment. Go to the list customers, and you can do one of two things. You can either click list properties here, or double click on list customers to go in and edit it. You'll notice that we have a series of tabs up top. So we use the quick starter to get going, but now we have the more detailed. So the first tab is all about where you're getting your data from. The second tab are the fields that are in your list. The third tab is list properties, which we'll come back to in a few moments. Then you actually have your detail view, which talks about how the list is actually connected to and integrated with the detail view. And then last but not least is the list layout. And you'll notice the list layout looks like a grid. You have the available fields on the left and the fields that are currently listed or shown in the list and presented. So I could, if I wanted to, grab some of these and remove them and it would create a sort of a fewer numbers of columns. But that really doesn't play well in the mobile world. What we really want to do is create a much different look and feel than a traditional grid kind of structure. If you have a large screen, it may actually make sense to have a grid representation because you can use it's available. And by the way, a little trick, you can actually have a list control have multiple layouts depending on the structure of the screen they're on, a small screen or a large screen. So follow along with me, go to List Properties, and then you can scroll down till you find Layout Type here, or a shortcut is to click Properties and type Layout and find Layout Type under Layout Properties. You'll notice that it's currently selected for column, so we have a grid column-like structure. Go ahead and click that and change it to freeform. We'll leave the freeform type to be vertical, but you'll notice you can have horizontal or snaking kind of structures, which for different user interfaces may be valuable, but let's keep it as vertical here. Now that we've created or changed this to freeform, let's go back to our list layout, and you'll notice now instead of our grid-like structure, we just have an area where we can put in here HTML in our layout. So we could say, oh, I want to have the first name and then last name, and then maybe put a break and then put that. And you'll notice when I went like this, it actually has built into it all of the HTML formatting tags that are available. So you could actually create any kind of representation you want using HTML and CSS. And then what will happen is for each row of the list, it'll present this information. It will substitute what's in the first name field into this location here, and the last name column or field into here. Now there's a nice shortcut built into the tool. It's called Predefined Templates. So go ahead and click on Predefined Templates. And you'll notice this will bring up a list template picker. And Alpha has already taken the time to create a series of templates that are available for you. These templates are just HTML and CSS that's been pre-configured that mimic a lot of modern interfaces. So the one I would like you to select is Level 1, Level 2. So move your mouse down to Level 1, Level 2, highlight that. Note there are more templates available, but Level 1, Level 2, leave this to be the same and click OK. Now, since I was playing around and put some text in here, it's saying, do you really want to overwrite this? Because it's going to put this new template in there. And the answer is yes. So click yes. Now, since I created a predefined template, it's saying there are two placeholders. These placeholders will basically be where the fields you want. So let's go ahead and say level 1 is going to be the company name, and level 2 is going to be, say, the last name of the person in that company. And so we have company is level 1 and last name is level 2. Once you've selected those, click OK. Now you'll notice that Alpha put in here a set of HTML. In fact, created a little sort of cell structure here. And if I scroll over here to the right, you'll notice that inside here, it's embedded those fields for company and last name. So when this renders, it's actually going to use the HTML and CSS to structure it and then dynamically insert here the value of company or last name. Now we can actually check this right here. Built into the list builder is a preview list functionality. So click here on the bottom left-hand corner for preview list. This will open up a preview list. So as you can see, some of our contacts do not have company records associated with them, or company names. That's why you're seeing only the name there. But you'll see other ones that have company names that are associated with them. But you can immediately use the preview list here to make sure that it's going to look the way you want to. So let's go ahead and close that. And let's do one last little thing. Since this is essentially for people in the field, you want to be able to make it easy for them to find information. So let's say they wanted to find a phone number for a particular account or company and user. Well, you could go ahead and force them to go into the details to see the details, or what you can do is display that in this format. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my insertion point after the last curly bracket in last name and before the div tag. I'm going to click a space, a single dash, and another space. This is basically hard-coded text that will be on every record. Over on the left-hand side, I'm going to double-click on the phone placeholder. And you'll notice when I double-clicked on it, it inserted that into our HTML here and included the little brackets around it. Now I'm going to go ahead down here and click Preview List. And you'll notice now we have a little bit more effective system. We have a name, and then behind it we have a phone number. So they can be quickly learning which people they want to call and not have to navigate, which makes it easier for your users to use the application. So now let's close this. Let's click OK. Save our list control. And let's click Working Preview. We're at our home page, we'll click Customers. And you'll notice, we've got a little nicer representation, but it's still not where it's at. You'll notice that it's now showing the text easier to read, but we still have our list field up here, or kind of our label up here. And actually, you'll notice that it doesn't really fit on the screen properly. We've got our icons here, but it's not represented there. Well, we can fix that really readily. Let's go back into Design. With List Customers selected, let's go over here to the right to the Properties. And you'll notice there's a property under List Properties where you see the height and width of this control. So it's basically making this height and width. And you could adjust that if you want. But more importantly, we have the ability to click this button here called Fill Container. When we select that, you'll notice the height and width went away. Because what the system will now do is it will take the content in your list and try to match it, or it will expand it to consume the whole area of your panel card. And now let's click Save and Working Preview. Let's go into Customers, and now you see we have what we're looking for. A mobile-oriented situation where it's now laid out very nicely. I can click and drag, and it will scroll up and down very naturally, and it will use all the hardware acceleration on a mobile device to make it super smooth. I can select an item. When I select it, it will be highlighted. We currently don't have the navigation, but behind the scenes, it's taking care of connecting the detail view to the list. So you can see this is much more of a regular kind of mobile application with a nicer user interface for your users to be able to do the work they want to do. Now that we have our list presenting much more like a mobile list, we can start working on navigation and actually cleaning up our detail view. So the first step is let's focus on navigation. You'll notice at this time I'm at the list here. I currently have a navigation to be able to go home, but when I click on an item, nothing happens at this time. So the navigation changes I'd like to make are first, when I click on an item, it takes me to show you the detail, and then I want to add a second menu item that will allow me to return to my list very easily. And I can actually do it in two ways: add a button to the user interface and also add a button or modify this to return to my home or to my list. So let's first start focusing on when you click on an item here, I want to actually navigate to the detail page so that we can see that information. So we go back into Design. We go into List Customers by double clicking on it. And remember, you can also click on the properties to the right. In order to add behaviors to the list, we go to the List Properties tab. Now, once we're at the List Properties tab, I can scroll down till I reach an area called JavaScript Runtime. And as you can see, there are a series of events, and actually more events available, that we can trap. And similarly to the button, we want to use the on-click event, which would be an on-click or a tap using your finger. So now we'll click on that to edit that. And you'll notice we're back into our list control system events, into our editor here. And again, as we mentioned before, if you know JavaScript, you can actually just put in JavaScript and off to the races. But in our case, we want to use Action JavaScript. So first step is on the right-hand corner, click Action JavaScript, Create Edit JavaScript Action. You'll notice that we have our previous Navigate Home. I'm going to add a new action, and I'm going to actually say Navigate Customer Detail, because we want to use this action to navigate into the customer detail, and click OK. Notice that it's giving us the warning saying the action is there, but nothing actually will occur until we configure it. So now we have our new Navigate Customer Detail, and it's currently a red icon. Click Edit Action to edit that, and now we're into our Action JavaScript Builder. As we did before, add new action by clicking here on the plus button. Type the word panel. You'll see we have panel actions. Click OK. From the action name, we want to set the active panel. And the target panel we would like to go to is Customer Detail. And we'd like to go ahead and animate that. Once you've set active panel and PC Customer Detail, click OK. We'll go ahead and put a comment in here to Customer Detail Panel and click OK. This now has saved our first step, and we can click Save here. You'll notice now that our Navigate Customer Detail has a green icon, meaning we're good to go, and click OK. Now, as we mentioned before, we've created the Action JavaScript, but we're in the click event here for the list itself. So the issue is if I just go on from here, nothing will actually occur. We actually have to call or trigger that Action JavaScript. So the way we do it is we go to Action JavaScript, insert code to run a JavaScript action. We select the action we would like to run, which is Navigate Customer Detail, and click OK. And as before, it will put in a little small piece of JavaScript that now will navigate us to the proper location. Click OK. Now our onClick event is defined. You'll notice that it is highlighted or turned bold, this text here, to let you know there is an event set up underneath there, and click OK. Save. Go to Working Preview. And now I'll go to Customers. And if I click on an item in the list, you'll see we now navigate to the customer detail. That's what I was looking for. But we need some behaviors. We need to get back to the list. Currently, the only way I could do that is go home and navigate all the way through. So let's first add a button at the top of here to navigate back. And then we can also add a button or modify this menu item to take you there. So the user has two ways to get to that customer list. So let's return to design. We want to add our button at the top of our detail pane. So what I'd like to do is select panel card PC_customer detail. On the left-hand side, go to Other Controls and click Button. This now adds a button. Let's go ahead and change the text of that to Return to List. And to make it look a little visually interesting, let's go ahead and change the button layout to be an image followed by text. When we do that, you'll notice now that the parameters have changed in the properties, and the one we would like is image name. So we'll click Image Name. I would like to use SVG icon. This will then change our editor. We can click Select button here. This will open up. We can review it, or we can type the word left. And as you can see, there's a number of different icons related to that. The one I would like to use is this kind of left caret. And the reason for that is you'll notice when we're on the list, to get down to the detail, it's a right caret, and to get back up, I'd like to use a similar kind of metaphor. And click OK, and click OK. So now we have a button. We want to do a couple quick things. First, remember with buttons, it's going to be only the size of the content of the button. So we'd actually like it to be the total width of that panel. So let's go up here to width and modify that to 100%, because we want that button to extend to be 100% of the width of the panel card shown. We also have added the button, but there's no behavior to it. So we can double click on this button here, click Add New Action, type the word panel. We'll select panel actions. The action name we would like is set the active panel. And then we need to specify the target panel name, which is the customer list. Click OK. We'll say navigate to customer list. And click OK. And click Save. So now we have a button on our detail view that will take us back to our customer list. Let's click Save. Let's go to Working Preview. We'll go into our list of customers, go into one of our customers, and now you'll notice we have our nice looking new button at the top. It's got a Return to List here. We can click on that, and it takes us back to the list. So now the user has a natural way to be able to navigate back and forth between the list and the customer detail. Now, as I mentioned before, we want to make one last modification. We'd like to actually use menu 2 here and change that to customer list. So let's go into Design. To remember to modify that menu, we need to go up to the control bar because all the content related to the menu up top is inside the control bar. Once we've opened the control bar by double clicking on it, let's go to our items. This is the elements that are part of it. And as we had before, our menu actually consists of these 4 different elements, menu 1 through menu 4. We've already modified menu 1, so let's change menu 2. So I'm going to click on menu 2 here in the control bar item name. I'm going to go over here to the right, and the first thing I'm going to change is the button text, because currently it just has menu 2. So I'm going to change that to customers. Now that I've changed the button text, we can also change the icon so we have something that makes more sense. Currently, the icon is a bar chart, so I'm going to go ahead and select that. We want to use SVG icon, so I'm going to click Select. This will open up our list, and let's kind of use the same icon that we used before. This is the people solid, so I'll select that. So now it's going to match kind of our home page button or a panel card button and this for consistency. Now you'll notice it's changed that, and we click OK. As before, we have our menu item, and you'll notice that currently on the click event, it triggers action number 2. So what I need to do is modify that action so that when the person selects that menu item, it does the navigation we would like. So let's go to Actions. You'll see that we currently have an action 1, which was setting up to navigate home. Let's go to action number 2 and look at the code. So currently it's set up for a little piece of JavaScript that does an alert. Well, we don't want that. We actually want the navigate. So let's remove that. Now we can define our action JavaScript to do the actual navigation. So go to Action JavaScript, create or edit a JavaScript action. You'll see our previous navigate home and customer detail. Now we want a customer list one. So let's click Add New Action, and we'll make it navigate customer list. It's giving us our warning saying it's not been set up, so we click OK. We now need to edit that action, so we select it and click Edit Action. We are now in our Action JavaScript Builder. Add New Action is the first step. Type panel, select that, and now we select the action, set active panel to be customer list, and click OK. And we'll put in our comment and click OK. Click Save, and now we have our new Action JavaScript. Click OK. Now you'll notice that we have deleted the previous code, but right now if this action were to be triggered, nothing would happen. So as before, we go to Action JavaScript and insert code to run a JavaScript action. And let's click Navigate Customer List. That's our new one. And click OK. You'll notice it puts in the little piece of code that allows us to navigate to the customer list, and we're good to go. So we've modified our item. We've modified the action associated with it. We don't need to modify the layout because that's already set up and ready to go. So we can now click OK. click Save, and let's go into Working Preview. We'll click our customers. We'll click into here. You'll notice we have our Return to List. But now if I click the drop-down, let's go ahead and go back in there. We now have a second menu item called Customers. And if I select that, you'll see that it does the same navigation. So now the user can navigate back from the detail. They can actually navigate anywhere they're at using this main menu to the customer list, which is very handy. Now I want to cover one other topic really quick, and this is really an important concept. You'll notice that when we built this, we created a button here and we actually embedded the navigation inside the button itself by creating Action JavaScript for this button. But if you'll notice, this button and this menu item do exactly the same thing. So we really, for consistency purposes, and as you'll see later in our training to make this even more powerful, we'd really like to use the same Action JavaScript for both of these. So therefore, if we add more things that need to be done, we don't have to track where we've embedded all these elements. So what we're going to do is go back into the design and modify this button here. So let's go into Design. Let's go to our button Return to List, and I can either double click on that button, or if I scroll down, I can edit the click event. So we would rather run an existing action. So in order to do so, let's first delete the embedded action, i.e. the action only associated with this button. We'll click that by clicking the Delete action here. We now have no actions associated with this button. Now we click Add New Action, type the word Run, although you can see it's the third one down, and we have Run Action. When you select that, it opens up a dialog where we can pick the action we'd like to run. So we have action name, and we can select Navigate Customer List. So now instead of having embedded action there, it's just going to run the same exact JavaScript that is in the menu item on the control bar. And then click OK. And it will type in here Navigate to Customer List. Click OK. And save. So now, instead of having that embedded, we're now reusing our content. So let's just make sure everything's working good. Click Save. Go to Working Preview. We can go into Customers, navigate into a customer. Now when I create or click this list, it does the same thing it did before, but it's reusing the same Action JavaScript as here. And again, that is a very good practice. I highly recommend that you centralize all of your JavaScript into Action JavaScript sort of in a central spot, and then trigger them by using that run action versus actually embedding it. And what you'll find is your application will become easier to manage and maintain over time. I wanted to take a few moments to step back and explain something that has gone on under the covers. When we built this, we used an existing template and added our list control. And during the quick setup for the list control, we identified where the source of that information is, the presentation, i.e. a list, and then we had a detail view, and most importantly, offline operation. So what's nice is by doing all of that, our system is basically ready to go to allow people to edit information immediately in the solution, even though if the visual representation is not where you want it to be. So let me do a quick demonstration. I'm going to go in here to this second record right here. And you'll see we have our record here. So I'm going to go ahead and change the company to be, maybe it's the person's name, the same as their last name. So I've modified the field there, and I'm going to go ahead and scroll down, actually adjust this a little bit so we can see the whole page there, to the bottom. And you'll notice we have a Save button that is highlighted because we've edited that record. So I'm going to go ahead and click Save. Now, you'll notice one key thing. When I clicked Save, the Synchronize button became active. That means that the data has been changed here on the device, but not actually pushed back into the database. And in fact, if I go back to my customer list, you'll notice now that there's a little yellow caret next to the name. So you'll notice that it's already updated my visual representation of the list with the new company name on there. But you'll notice at the same time, it's given us an indicator here. And what that indicator means is that this record has been updated on the local device here, but has not been persisted or written back to the backend data source. So what's great is that the system is already managing our data offline for us. Let me go ahead and go back into that record, and let me click the synchronize. When I click synchronize, you'll see that after a moment, you saw a little round circle. What was happening there is it was calling back to the backend database, comparing the record, making sure there are no conflicts, and then applying the update to the backend, and then reporting it back to the front end. And you'll notice now the synchronize button is in this shape, now not enabled because the list is in sync. And in fact, if I go back to the customers, you'll notice now this customer does not have a little icon on it because it has been fully synced and the data on the mobile device is synchronized with the back-end system. So the cool thing is we can spend our time focusing on how the user interacts with the tool and interacts with the application, and less time on what I call the plumbing. Now, as you'll see as we move through the training, we're going to make a few more adjustments. You have a lot of control over this process, and you can modify it, you can enhance it, you can handle it completely yourself if you want. But one of the key aspects is that all of this is handled for you automatically by the list control, because it knows how to take all these changes, keep them managed locally, update them on the back end, and keep everything in sync. Now that we've nailed down all of our navigation, we can focus our next steps on improving the look and feel. Specifically, I'm going to enter into the detail record, and I want to clean up a few things. First is the buttons or the alignment there. You'll also notice that we have labels above the text area, but the text area is somewhat constrained here. The other aspects is we have certain controls that are shown, which are really hidden controls that really shouldn't be shown to the user. So we're going to do a series of cleanup items on the user interface. So let's focus on the first step, which is this customer ID. You'll notice that it's currently showing, and that's a hidden unique ID for the record, and we really don't need to show that. So let's return to the design environment. Let's select the customer ID field within the detail view. And then over on the right-hand side, you'll notice that we have on our properties, we have one property in particular called hide, and this will actually hide the control. Now the control still exists on the mobile platform, but it's hidden here. So I'm going to click that, and let's go ahead and save and do a working preview. We'll enter into our customers area, check out one of our customers, and you'll notice now the ID field is hidden. So it's very easy for you to hide fields. Now, if a new record is created, the ID field will still be available to the logic to be able to work there. Plus, you can have hidden fields, have other information to make it available on the mobile platform, but not be visible to the end user. Now, another area I'd like to look at is following. You'll notice that our area for our actual edited kind of cuts off about 3/4 of the way here. And so you'll see that even when I go to, say, a horizontal positioning, this is even more dramatic here. I really want to give my users the ability to edit their fields with a lot more flexibility. So I'm going to return back to my vertical orientation. I'm going to go back into my design environment. Once I'm there, I'll select the first name field. So now that the first name field is selected, we can look at our properties. You'll notice that our properties currently, there's no width. So it uses a default width within the application. And by the way, just for future reference, that is located in properties. If I go to properties, select the search properties and type width, you'll see label with UX properties. So you can set parameters at the UX level that will essentially be inherited by the individual controls. Now in my case, what I'd like to do is extend the width of this control so it looks sharp. So I would think off the top I would do 100%, but there's an issue, and I'll show you that in a moment. So actually what I'd like you to do is set it to 90%. And that will set the width of this control to 90%. Now let's go ahead and go back into our working preview and take a look at what's going on here. Select customers, select our customer, and you'll notice now the width of this field is 90%. Now, the reason I set 90% over 100% is I want to be able to give the user the ability to swipe up. And if I make 100%, you'll notice when I click here, it actually selects the field. But when I click here, you'll notice that I have essentially, it allows me to grab the panel itself and do a scroll up and down. So I tend to set my controls to be about 90%, so I give a little bit of room for the person to use their finger to do the swipe gesture to be able to move up and down. Now that we've set our first name to be 90%, I'm going to go ahead and apply that to the other ones. Now, I could repeat the process, but we can actually use the shortcut that we've used before. So let's return to design. Let's select first name, make sure that's selected, and then make sure you have width selected here. So we've selected the property of that control. Now I'm going to go up here and I'm going to click on this. This opens up our select multiple controls, and I'm going to scroll down, and you'll notice here that the first name is currently set to 90%, but the other elements aren't. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to shift click or click drag from last name to email, so all of those are selected. And I'm going to click set properties. Now what that does is it copies this width property to the other elements here. So as you can see, it's going through and setting the width property here. So now when I go in and take a look at my updated UX, you'll see that all of them have the same width. Select customers, select our first customer, and now you'll notice that they all have a similar width, and they're easier to edit for the person. There's more space, especially when you get to address and things like that. Now I want to do another little quick visual element here. You'll notice that we have our billing area. In the future, we may want to add our shipping here. So I want to kind of give it some visual element to kind of group that information together. So to do so, I'm going to go back into design. I'm going to scroll down until I get to my billing area here. So I'm going to click here and then shift click or click drag all of my billing items here. So now I've selected all of those billing items here. I'm going to go over to the left to containers, and I'm going to add a container, or I'm sorry, a frame around this billing address. So I'll click frame. And now when I do that, it's asking me to insert a frame. It's going to insert an opening and closing tag around my selected items. That's why I can do it pretty quickly. I select them before I insert the frame. And I'm going to type billing information. So that's going to be the label for my frame. And I'm going to click OK. Now you'll notice that a frame has been inserted. And you'll notice there's a frame beginning and a frame end. And you'll notice we have our bill address and other pieces here. So once I've selected my frame and everything is set up correctly, I can go to Working Preview. Select Customers. Select a customer. Now I'm going to scroll down, and you're going to notice now I have my billing information. And you'll see. Now, you'll see that I've lost a little bit of my space here, and actually this is kind of over to the left. So I probably want my billing information to be 100% of the width of that. So I'll go in and adjust that. So you have to take that into account. It's dynamic. Now, if you'll notice, I go to horizontal again. Again, this is going to be only as wide as an item here. So let's go ahead and go into design. Let's select frame, and frame has a width element, and the width is in relationship to its parent. So in this case, a panel card or a container and a panel card. So let's go ahead and put in here 100% so that my frame will always be 100% of the width. Now, when we do that, then these sub-controls here will be 90% of the width of the top level. And that's just an element you need to get kind of used to, is manipulating things on a percentage basis. So let's go into Working Preview. I'm going to go back to my horizontal or vertical representation, click Customers, select our first customer, and scroll down. And now you notice it starts to look a little nicer. You have more room for entering the data, and it's taking up the width here. Again, when I go to a horizontal alignment, you'll notice that, it's stretched out the frame to the complete width here, and also the items within it stretched out to use that extra space. So this gives the control to the user in terms of how those pieces are. Now I'd like to do one other thing, and that is the following. You'll notice that when we created our fields, Alpha automatically used the name of the column in the database for those fields. So in this case, it kind of doesn't look really good. So let's go ahead and make a modification to what are called the field labels so that this looks sharp. So let's go into Design. I'm going to select bill address number 1, and I'm going to scroll down here till I get to the field label area here. And now you'll notice I have my label here. I can select that to say address 1. And let's go ahead and do that for address 2. So you'll notice when I do that, we're now on a label showing for that. So I'll have address 2. And we'll do it for the other ones here. We'll go city, region, postal code, and country. Once I've adjusted all those, I will go ahead and save. Let's go into our working preview. Go to vertical, customers, and we'll scroll down, and you can see it's starting to look a little nicer. Since we have billing information on top, it basically tells us that we don't have to have that redundant text in there. And you'll notice also that if we had our shipping, we could obviously go ahead and create another frame and follow along the same practice here. Now there's one other little adjustment I'd like to make, is that down here, I want to go ahead, and these buttons are kind of, I'm not really a big fan of having them kind of like this snaking here. So I basically want to take all these buttons and make them 100% of the width of this screen here and centered so they look sharp. So let's go into Design. I'm going to select the first button. I'm going to go with and put the width of 100%. And this is similar to what we did with our Return to List button. I want to use the same technique we used before, which is I'm going to select the property I'd like to copy. I'm going to click the Copy Properties icon, and you'll notice that it remembered the last group here, but I'm just going to go down here and select the group of records I would like to apply it. One thing that's nice is it actually shows you the current values, so you can kind of double check to make sure it's what you want. So I'll go ahead and click Set Properties, and now these buttons have all been set. Click Save, go to Working Preview, Customers, select a customer, and I'm going to scroll down, and now you'll notice our buttons look a little nicer. As you can see, they're nicely laid out and centered. And in fact, if I go to a horizontal representation, you'll see again it's nicely centered in the middle of our area. Let's return back to vertical. One thing we'll cover in a future training is that it is kind of sort of a pain to have to go all the way to the bottom here to select these items here. So we'll teach in a future training how to go ahead and put that on this area up here, some of these buttons here, so that you don't have to do as much navigation, meaning you can be right here and still have access to those buttons. Going to make one last little cosmetic. You'll notice that I have my billing information, but then all of a sudden I have my email here. Doesn't make much sense. So we really would like our email to be located up near our contact information. So let's go into Design. I'm going to select the email, and I can go ahead and move that to where I would like it to be after the fax here. Now there's two methods. I could use my up arrow and slowly but surely move it up through the hierarchy, but there's a shortcut. You'll notice up here there's a stacked set of boxes, and I can click on there And when I do, it shows me all of my elements. I can scroll down, I can select facts, and then I can say move after and click OK. And you'll notice in a moment it's moved that control exactly where I need to go. That's a time saver. You don't have to go through and do all these. And in fact, if you select multiple items and use that same technique, it'll move all those items at the same time. One other capability I'd like to provide the people in the field who are using this application is the ability to quickly map the location of a customer within the mobile application. So in our next section, we're going to focus on adding a map and tying it to the specific customer the user is looking at. So let's return to the design. I'm going to take a moment here to clean up and make that customers, get rid of the numbering that we were using in the last presentation. I'm going to first scroll down, and you'll notice that we have a panel card called PC_customer map. And this is going to be the location of our map in our application. I'm going to go ahead and delete the static text by clicking the red X icon. I'm going to select the opening tag of that panel card. I'm going to go over to Data Controls. I'm going to go ahead and scroll down till I find the map control. I'm going to go ahead and click that to add a map. This will open up our new control. Again, if it looks like this, go ahead and do me a favor and click Create Multiple New Controls at Once. And I'm going to talk this Map Customers. I'm going to go ahead and call this Map Customer and click OK. So you'll notice now we have a map that's part of our system. It's called Map Customer, and you'll notice there is a different set of properties on the right-hand side. So I'd like you to adjust a few things real quick so it makes it look really sharp. First, this map, I want it to consume all of the panel cards, so when the user navigates to it, they don't see a field label or anything like that. So the first step is to go to Fill Container, and that will fill the complete container. Now that we have that set and ready to go, we can go ahead and add the behaviors in it to map the customer address. Let's go ahead and scroll back up till you're into the customer detail area. And I'd like to add a new button here that will map the customer. So select our existing button called Return to List. Over in the left-hand side, go to Other Controls, Button. And that will add a new button in there. Now I want you to go over to Button Text and change that from Button to Map Customer. Okay. Now to make that look really sharp, let's go ahead and modify that from a button layout that's text only to an image followed by text. So select the drop-down box. Select Image followed by Text, and then let's go to Image Name and click the ellipsis button next to Image Name. As we've done before, I want to go ahead and use the built-in SVG icon. So let's click SVG icon, let's click Select, and this will bring up our icon selector, and type Map in the Filter section. And you'll see there's a nice little map icon here that shows sort of a map and a little map and a pin above it. Click OK. Now click OK. So we've added our map to our user interface, but it doesn't actually do anything yet. So let's click Save just to save our progress so far. And let's modify the behavior of this map. So let's go ahead and either double click on it, or you can scroll down till you get to the JavaScript click event and open that up. Now you could click Add Action and immediately start adding the actions to do the mapping right here. And that would be perfectly fine. But as we've seen before, there's value in making all of your action JavaScript sort of centralized in a central location. So I'd like to go ahead and follow up on that technique and show you that here. So instead of clicking Add New Action on this button here, click Text Mode, and then you'll notice we have a button here called Action JavaScript. Click on that button and click Create Edit JavaScript Action. You'll notice we have our new ones here, or our existing ones, and now we want to add a new action. So let's go ahead and we'll go Map Customer. That's the name of our action name. Click OK. Click OK again, because this is saying we've created the action, but it doesn't do anything yet. Now let's click Edit Action. This will bring us now to our Action JavaScript Builder. So there's a couple little steps in there, but the payoff is going to be a little bit later when you can reuse this over and over. So let's click Add New Action. And our first action we'd like to do, and this is going to be interesting because we're going to add a second action. First thing we want to do is do the actual mapping. So let's go ahead and click Map, or type in Map, and you'll see there's one called Google Map Method UX Component. And click OK. This opens up our Map Actions editor. First, it's asking me which map do I want to operate on, because you may have multiple apps. You'll see the first item is the map ID, and this is where we select which map you want to actually perform the action on. And notice you can have multiple maps in your interface, so that's why you can have multiple map IDs. So let's go ahead and select the one we just added, Map Customer. The next step is asking me, well, what's the action you want to perform? So let's click the drop down here, and as you can see, there's a wide range of map actions, and there's new ones being added all the time. The one we would like is add a marker to the map. So let's click Add a Marker to the Map. We have a choice of how we're going to actually identify how that marker should be placed on the map. The first is explicit, so I could put in an exact address here, or latitude and longitude. There's also other ways. One that's very powerful is called device location, which will actually show a pin on the map of where that current mobile device is at. But I'd like you to select Controls on Component. Now that you've done that, we have a next item here called Controls to Read. Let's click that to open that up. And then you'll notice that it gives me a set of controls. And those controls are the different ones that exist on my user interface. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the billing information. So let's click Bill Address, 1, 2, City, and Postal Code and Country. Region really doesn't make much sense, but we can use these right here. So that's basically going to say that when this action runs, it's going to go ahead and look at the current values that are in these fields and use that for the mapping aspect. And you'll see there's some help that talks about the different ways to do it. And so click OK. Now we have been defaulted to address here, but if those happen to be fields that already have latitude and longitude, you can tell it to use that. In our case, since we're using addresses, one of the nice things is behind the scenes, the system will automatically geocode that address into a latitude and longitude and then display it on the map. You can go ahead and change the marker settings, but we're going to leave those as it is right now. And click OK. And we'll go ahead and type in here, Show Map of Customer. So that's our first action. Now we're going to do a very important aspect. When you click this OK button, what's going to happen is it will actually create the map in that mapping component that's already on the user interface. But the trick is we're currently on, and let me scoot this over a little bit, we're on the customer detail, but the map is on a different panel. So in order for the user to actually see the map, we need to bring the map into view. And so what we can do is we can chain together multiple action JavaScripts to happen one after another. So click Add New Action. Let's type our familiar panel action. Select OK. Let's go ahead and select the action name to be Set Active Panel and the target panel to be Customer Map. So what will happen is we click OK and save that to navigate to Customer Map and click OK. So you'll see now when you're using Action JavaScript, you're not just limited to a single Action JavaScript, you can have multiple ones and they can be chained together. And in fact, if it's important that they happen one after another, you can use this run actions synchronously, and this explains it here, that will allow you to then step through it sequentially as those are shown. Now, as we've done before, the one reason I do like putting in comments here is now you kind of know what each step of this is going. So if you have 3 or 4 of them, you can kind of read through and see the commentary of what's going on. The other aspect is that if you wanted these to operate in a different order, let's say you wanted to go to the map panel first and then map it, you can use these arrows here to move the sort of the order of which they're executed. So let's click Save. Let's click OK. And now we're back to our click event. Now, as we've seen before, if I were to just save this and try and run it, nothing will happen because we've created the action JavaScript, but there's no way it's going to actually get executed. So we need to go to Action JavaScript, insert code to run the action JavaScript. There's our map customer we've created, and click OK. And now this little piece of JavaScript is associated with this button, and when it happens, it then goes get the action JavaScript and executes those actions within it. A few more steps involved here, but the payoff will be higher reuse of your action JavaScript and organization, which I'll show you next. Let me click Save. We have one final task we need to perform before our map is fully operational, and that is to insert our Google Map API into the map component to ensure that when we make the call to Google, it will be accepted. Locate your Google Map API key. Then what I'd like you to do is scroll down and select Map Customer. And then on the properties, find the property Google Maps API key. Put your insertion point there and paste the value into the Google Maps API key. We now have a Google Maps API key, and we're in a position now to fully test. So save our component. Now, normally we've been going to working preview, but I find that in this case you want to use live preview. I find that the Google Maps API works much better when we're in live preview or you've published and running on your local machine. So go ahead and click live preview, do a full preview. This will open up our application. Select customers. Let's go ahead and select this customer right here, South Bend Auto, and let's click Map Customer. Before, notice that my button here doesn't go all the way across the screen. We'll fix that in a few moments. Let's go ahead and click Map Customer, and you'll notice in a moment that indeed it has now changed to my map. It's placed a marker on the map, and you'll see it's that location. Let me go ahead and return to customers. Let me select a different one here. Let's map that customer, and you'll see now it's mapped that. And this map is really nice because when you're running on the mobile device or in the browser, it's got a very slick movement. It really looks sharp. You can also do zoom in, zoom out to see where it's located at. There's a lot of really fun things you can do. Now, a couple things is we need to fix that button, but we also have an issue here. I'm looking at the map. I don't really have a way to get back to my detail here. So I can go back to my list of customers and then have to go back in, but that's a little awkward. I'd like to be able to actually return right to this location. Now we could add a menu item here, but we're going to take this opportunity in our next section to actually modify our control bar. So when we're in our map, we're going to see a different control bar up here with a little icon that goes back. And that will explore our control bar technology a little more detail. So that's adding mapping. Let's go ahead and do a real quick change. Let's go to Design, select or go to the top, select Map Customer, go over here to Width and type in 100%. And that will go ahead and make that button 100%. Go ahead and save. And that will save our UX, and we're ready for the next step where we can add that navigation to the control bar. As we mentioned before, when you're on the map, you're in a position where you want to be able to navigate back to the detail of the customer. In order to do so, we want to go ahead and add some navigation to that map environment. Now, since the map is taking up the complete area of the customer map, i.e. the panel, I don't want to add any other controls in there because I want to have that map to be as natural and full as possible. We could add a button or a menu item to our dropdown, but that also is a bit awkward and probably hard for the person to find out where to go from there. So we can actually do something very interesting with the control bar. We can add a new layout, display that when we're on the customer map, and then use that to show the person a navigation to take them back to the customer detail. And this will be important for other specific situations in terms of if you have other elements that are coming off of your detail area, you can reuse that over and over. So our first step is to return back to the top of our UX. Let's go ahead and edit the control bar by virtue of either double clicking on it or clicking control bar properties. And this will bring up our editor here. So first thing I'd like you to do is go to items. You'll notice we have a preset set of items in there, and we want to add a new item. And this item is going to be a button that when clicked on, it's going to take you to the customer detail. So let's click Add Control Bar Item. Let's go ahead and say Button Customer Detail. I tend to like to give these item names a little bit more of a good name so that you'll understand what they're used for when we see them in the user interface. And as you can see, we have a button here. And let's go ahead and click OK. So you'll notice now we have our new button available. You'll notice a couple things. First, it's already created a click event for us. So we just merely need to edit that click event to be able to modify the behaviors of what will go on there. I'm going to scroll down here, and you'll see currently it sets it up as a text button. In our case, we only want it to be an image. So let's go ahead and click Button Layout, click the drop-down layer, and say Image Only. Click the drop-down and select Image Only. Now select Icon and click to open up the icon chooser. As we've done before, we're going to use SVG icons. I'm going to click Select here, and I'm going to find a left icon, sort of a navigate back type icon. And this is the one I'd like to use right here. And you'll click OK, and you'll notice this is the name of that icon, and you click OK. So now we have our new button that's available. And as I mentioned before, we have a click event that has already been built for us. So let's go ahead and modify that. So step one was create the button. Step two, let's go ahead and modify the behavior of the action. So we'll go to Actions, and you'll notice now we have a new action here that's been added to our list. I'm going to go ahead and select there, and you'll see that it puts in a standard set of JavaScript, just saying the action has not been defined. So we can go ahead and delete that. So go ahead and highlight and delete that on line 14. Now what we want to do is go ahead and create our action JavaScript to do the navigation. So let's go ahead and go to Action JavaScript and create Edit JavaScript Action. So we already have a set of them here, and in fact we have one right here called Navigate Customer Detail. So we actually can use that to go ahead and return right to there. And if we need to edit and look at it, we can look at it and see, oh, all we're doing is a panel action to go back to that customer detail. So the nice thing is now we don't have to keep creating new actions over and over again. We can start leveraging our existing ones. So I'm going to click OK and click Save. And I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Now, since we already have that action, we can go to Action JavaScript, insert code to run the action JavaScript, and we select Navigate Customer Detail. And that puts in our little piece of JavaScript that allows you to then run that action JavaScript. So we have our button, we have an action that will take you to the specific, back to the customer detail, but that button really doesn't show up anywhere yet. We need to add it to a layout. So our next step is to go to Control Bar Layout. I'm going to go ahead and create a new layout. So we have two layouts. The first one is our top level layout that we use all the time. The second is that menu that's below, which we modified before. So let's create a new layout. And I'm going to actually name this layout the same as our panel card. So PC customer map. I find that's kind of a common, easy to use thing because you'll often say, hey, for this panel card, show this layout. You can use your own naming convention, but that usually tends to be pretty simple. So I'll click OK. Now you'll notice it went ahead and created my new layout. You also notice when that's selected, there's nothing in my layout. In fact, it gives me a warning saying, hey, you have not added any lines to layout PC customer map, meaning that there's really nothing inside of this layout. So our step number 1 is to add a new line to this layout. And when we click on that, it brings out the edit layout line. And you'll see we have our before, middle, and after. And remember, in our case, if we're horizontal, before is on the left side, middle is in the middle, and after is in the right-hand side. So I actually want that little button to show up on my left side. So click Add. This shows our list of control bar items. We can see our button right there. And in fact, you'll notice because I named it very specific, it's easy to find. So again, pick a naming convention and stick with it. And click OK. So now we have our button that's available right there. And we click OK. So you'll see we have our nice little button on a control bar layout. And there's nothing up there too. So you know what? Let's go ahead and to make it similar to layout here, I want to keep this My App in the middle. So let's go ahead and go back to PC Customer Map. We can edit this line since it already exists. So let's go ahead and click that line and click Edit Line. And then in the middle section, we can go ahead and add that existing HTML. So let's click Add, click HTML1, and click OK, and then click OK. So now it's going to be maintaining sort of a familiar feel. So you'll see less jarring results when you go from layout to layout if you maintain certain consistency among the different layouts. Now that we have our new control bar set up, we need to figure out how to display that control bar when the person navigates to the map. Because by default, the current control bar will stay on the screen until it's been replaced. So to do so, let's go ahead and click OK to exit out of our control bar builder. And let's go down to our button. So when the user clicks on the Map Customer button, we're not only mapping and taking them to that panel card, but we also want to issue the command to tell the control bar to show our new control bar layout that we just created. So let's go ahead and go into Map Customer by double clicking on it. And you'll notice that because we have established this to be an action JavaScript, we're actually not going to edit that information here, meaning we're not going to add the behavior here. We can go ahead and click Action JavaScript, create edit, and then modify this map customer. But let me show you a shortcut. And this is, again, where by using Action JavaScript, you're really going to start enjoying it. So let me cancel out of here. We know that when the person clicks this button, it's running this action map customer. So let's cancel there. Now on the left-hand side, you'll see there is an area in the code section. And if code is not exposed, just go ahead and expand it. And let's go to JavaScript Actions. And by clicking on that, that brings up our actions. So you don't actually have to go in and drill down into the controls, because once you've established these action JavaScripts, you can edit them at any time by clicking JavaScript Functions, or I'm sorry, JavaScript Actions. So we want to edit our map customer. Let's go ahead and edit that action here. So you'll currently see there are two behaviors when the person runs this action JavaScript. The first step is to update the map with the pin, and then we do our set active panel. What's nice is we can go ahead and just add a third action to modify our control bar layout. So go ahead and click Add New Action. Type the word control for control bar, and you'll notice about towards the end are my control bar actions. So let's go ahead and double click on control bar actions, and this brings up our control bar action builder. So the first thing it's asking us is what action should we take on the control bar? And the control bar is very rich. So as you can see, there's a fair number of different control bar actions. And the one we want to use is set the active control bar layout. So go ahead and click OK. And that is our action. Now the second question is, well, which control bar? What's nice is you can have multiple control bars in your system, so you can kind of pick and choose. So let's go ahead and select that one. And in our case, we only have one control bar at the top of the screen. So we'll select that. Now the third question is, well, okay, you want to change the layout, but which one do you want me to display? So when we go to the map, we want to show the control bar layout PC_customer map. And we click OK. And then last is you can animate that if you so choose. It depends on your sort of feel of what you want on your application. I'm going to leave that disabled for right now. So let's go ahead and click OK. And I'm going to say show PC customer map control bar layout as the comment for this action. So as you can see, these comments are really powerful, and I really highly encourage you to use them because you can see really quickly, oh, show the map of the customer, navigate to the customer map. Actually, let's go here and change that to, we'll change that comment, by the way. That should be to the customer map panel. To change that, you just click over here on this little button here, and I can go in and I can say customer map panel card and click OK. That way we have a really good documented set of actions. And then we show the PC customer map control bar layout. So now we've edited our action JavaScript for map customer. We can click OK. In our case, since that's a tap to map customer, we don't even have to modify that button because that button will now run the new sequence. I'm going to go ahead and click Save. I'm going to click Live Preview. As we talked about it, Live Preview is the way to go for when you're doing any kind of mapping kind of behaviors. I'm going to select Customers. I'm going to go ahead and scroll down a little bit. I'll select our Leanne customer here. And last but not least is I'm going to click Map Customer. And you'll notice that not only were we taken to the map, but now our control bar layout has changed. So you see we now have our nice little navigation button with that. So contextually, when I'm on this panel card looking at the map, I can have a whole different set of actions on this panel control bar that is related to the content that's down below. So when I want to return back to the detail view, I'm going to go ahead and click this. Now you'll notice something. When I went back to the detail view, the same control bar is being shown. So when I set the layout of the control bar to this new layout, it sticks. And the only way I can modify that is when, and you'll notice here, is now I have this button here. If I click here, it's kind of in an infinite loop. It just keeps coming back to my detail here. So what I'd like to do is when I go to Map Customer, when I click this button, I not only want to go back to the customer detail, but I want to modify my control bar layout back to what it was before. So there's a little sort of maintenance management you have to do of the control bar, but nothing too great. So let's return to our design. Let's go ahead and go back into our control bar quickly. And I'm going to go to that item, which is button customer detail. And remember, it's going to run the click event, which is button customer detail on click. So we go to our actions area here. And as you can see with our selected item, that we're actually running the action JavaScript navigate customer detail. So I can edit that here, or I'm just going to exit out of here. I'm going to go over here to my JavaScript actions. That opens up there. There is my navigate customer detail. Again, as you can see, there's kind of a theme here. Once you centralize these, they're much easier to find and edit. You don't even have to dig them out of or go into the controls to edit them. So let's edit that action. So currently all that's happening now is it's going to our customer detail panel. So let's go ahead and add a new action. Let's type in the word control because we're looking for the control bar actions and click OK. This will bring up our control bar actions editor. Let's go ahead and select the action we'd like to do is to set the active control bar layout because we're going to set that original layout back to where it needs to be. So we'll go set active layout, control bar layout, click OK. It's going to ask us which control bar. Well, we only have one, which is control bar 1. And then now it's asking which layout name. And we are going to go back to layout 1, which is our original. And we may want to rename that, and we'll probably do that in a future training. But the idea here is by knowing which ones, we're going to say, hey, let's go ahead and re-show that layout, which has the menu and the header. and click OK. And again, I'm not going to animate it. I'm going to keep it so it instantly appears. Let me click OK. And I'm going to go set the control bar layout to layout 1 and click OK. So now our event to go to the customer detail will go to that panel and always show the default layout or layout 1. And let's click save. Now we've edited that, we can click OK. Let's save our UX. Go into live preview. Now notice when I go into live preview, since we've done one full preview before, that's kind of the first time you work with your UX, you need to do that. All you have to do is a fast preview. And this actually shaves a few moments of time in terms of displaying the screen. And as you should know, every moment counts. I'm going to go into customers. I'm going to scroll down here to Leanne. I'm going to map this customer. We're on our map. We can see that our control bar layout changed. I'm going to click here, and you'll notice I'm back and I have my layout showing. And I can navigate from there however I want to. So as you can see, control bar layouts, you can add as many layouts as you want. You can have different configurations of buttons. You can use Action JavaScript to modify that control bar. In fact, you could be clicking a button on the screen and modifying that. There's many different things you can do within it. To finish off our detail view, I want to make a final couple little adjustments just to kind of clean up my interface and make it really logical for the user. So I'm going to scroll down here, and you'll see that we have our buttons down below. So a couple things, this new record, I'd actually like that not buried here, but on my first home page or home panel card. Delete record, I don't even want them to delete records out in the field. Obviously they can and it'll work, but this is sort of a corporate company master and you don't really want people in the field deleting your things. And then last but not least is synchronize. I would like to go ahead and also have that on the original panel that comes up. So to do so, we can actually leverage these pre-built buttons to do that. So let's go into design. Now you notice when we created our UX to begin with, we actually created a new customer and a synchronized customer button. So really those buttons are there, we just need to add the behaviors. So I'm going to scroll down here till I find new record here, and I'm going to double click on that. And as you'll see that when Alpha created this, it actually, or when it created the button, it actually put this JavaScript there for me. And the same thing on synchronize, you'll see we have a action JavaScript, or not action JavaScript, but JavaScript command that does that. So let's go ahead and start with synchronize. I'm going to go ahead and copy this information by selecting it and clicking copy, or you can use this icon right here and click copy. I'm going to cancel out of here. I'm going to scroll up, go to my synchronize, open this up. Now when I open it up, it's in our defaulted action JavaScript, so I'm going to go ahead and click here and go text mode and paste it here. We click save, and now our synchronize action is on the appropriate button. And I can go back down here, I can click synchronize, and I can click delete. Now the next thing I'd like to do is for delete record, you can either, and it's up, you can either click hide here so we can keep that button on here, but I really want to get rid of it so it doesn't even exist in the interface. So that one also, after selecting delete record, I'm going to click the red X. Now new record's interesting. Let's go back and look at that one more time. So we have new record here, and you notice this is the action JavaScript, or actually I'm sorry, the JavaScript that's running to execute that. As you can see, it gets a pointer to the list of customers, and then it triggers a function that says create a new one here. Now, if I were to go ahead and copy this from here up to our other button, that would work fine. But the problem is when I am on this panel right here, PC Home, and I click new customer, it'll create an empty customer in here, but that's all it will do. You actually have to navigate to go ahead and enter that data. So what we want to actually happen is when this button is clicked, we want it to have two things happen. One is to create the new record using this action or this JavaScript, And then secondly, I would like to actually navigate right to the customer detail so the user can start entering their information. So to do that, let's leverage the power of our centralized action JavaScript. Let's go over here to JavaScript Actions. You'll notice we have our current one, so I'm going to add a new action. I'm going to call it New Customer. So I'm just going to give it that name. Click OK. It's giving me the notice that's saying I'm creating the action, but it doesn't do anything yet, and I'll click OK. Now I'm going to go ahead and cancel back out of here. I should have done this before, but I'm going to cancel out of that. I'm going to go ahead and save my edits just because I've saved that there. I'm going to go back into my new record here and copy this information. So I'm going to do that by selecting it and then clicking the copy button, and then I'll just cancel out of here. I should have done that before, but let's go ahead and go back into JavaScript Actions. Let's go into New Customer. Notice that even though it's not defined, we still saved sort of the shell of what it would be. So let's go into New Customer. Now, I could go into text mode and paste that right in there, but I know I'm going to have multiple actions going on. So let's use one of the nicer little features built into the Action JavaScript Builder. Let's click Add New Action. Now I'll go here, and you'll notice my second one here is AJAX callbacks and JavaScript. And one of those is inline JavaScript. So let's click OK. And this just brings up a JavaScript editor. And I can click in here and just paste any JavaScript I would like to run. So click OK after you've pasted that information into here. And I'm going to go Create New Customer Record. That's the first step. So now we're still in our Action JavaScript. We don't have to go into text mode, but we kind of have a mini text mode being able to add our own little pieces of JavaScript in there. Now, when you click on this button, it's going to go ahead and execute and create a new record here. So let's go ahead and click Add New Action. Now the next thing we want to do is a panel action because we want to actually show the person the data entry point for that new customer. So let's go ahead and go Panel Actions. The action we'd like is to set the active panel, and the target panel we would like to set it to is customer detail, not customer list. We actually want to take them right into the customer detail so they can start entering their information into it. So we go ahead and say that and click OK. And we can put in our comment to navigate to customer detail. So the benefit of this is you have this nice little process that you're building here. This can be triggered anywhere. So you might want to add that to the control bar later on. So you have it up in the control bar as a button you can execute when you're on, say, a detail record or on the list or anywhere else it happens to be. And we're not dealing with text mode where everything is just a bunch of JavaScript, a little easier to manage. So let's click Save. Now that we've saved that, let's go ahead and click OK. So now we've created our new Action JavaScript to create the new record. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this button. We don't need it anymore. I'm going to go ahead and scroll up to my New Customer button. I'm going to go ahead and double click on that. I can do one of two things. I can go to text mode and do insert code to run a JavaScript action. But I tend to like Action JavaScript as much as possible. It just makes it readable. So I can click Add New Action. I can type Run. There's our Run action. And we're going to select our action name, our new customer action that we created. So basically, we're just going to run that. We'll go Run New Customer Action, because we do want to put that comment in there. So that's Run New Customer Action. Click OK. So when the person clicks on this button, we don't actually have the action embedded in that button. It's in our central location. And click Save. Now we can save this. In our case, I'm just going to go ahead and do working preview to test this out. Takes us to our home page. We have our new customer. I'm going to go ahead and click that, and you'll see we're right to our customer detail. So I'll go ahead and put in John Doe And let's just say they're John Doe Company. So I can immediately start typing in the information for them. 800-555-1212. And for fax, we'll do 800-555-1212. Scroll down a little bit farther, and I'm going to go johndoe@gmail.com. Doesn't exist, but it's for this. We can go ahead and put in the address information if we want, but I'm going to go ahead and skip that for now. And you'll notice now we have a save and reset. Oops, we also have this text. We can delete that in a moment. So now click Save. So now it's saved that record. Now, very important, this record has been saved to the local list. It has not actually been persisted to the database yet. But as you'll notice, I can go back in here and continue editing it. I can be completely offline for this. Now I'm going to go ahead and click Return to List. And I will scroll down to the bottom. And you'll notice we have our new record. So the list currently has a record with that information into it. Notice it's showing the company name, the last name, and then the phone number. And notice our little line right here, which is our blue caret, which says to the user, you have a new record, but it's not been persisted back to the backend database. So now I'm going to go up here. I'm going to go back to my home. And now I can click my Synchronize button. And in a moment, it will call the database and apply that change. In fact, if I go into Customers, you'll notice now that the customer information has been synced and we no longer have that caret. In a future training, we'll show you how when you actually edit or save a customer, you can actually trigger a synchronize event if needed. The other thing you can do, which is really fun, is you can put sort of a status in your control bar to let people know if they have unsynchronized data. There's some little tricks that are available for doing that. So now we have a much cleaner interface. We have our new customer working, we have our synchronize working, we have mapping, and our mobile app for our people out in the field is coming together very, very nicely. And they can be out in the field working with customer data, updating it, adding new customers, mapping those customers, all with this capability. Now, there are two primary ways in which you can test your new mobile solutions. First method is actually on your local machine, and then the other is actually using a mobile device. First, let's show the ability to test it quickly on your current development machine. I have my UX open. You'll notice up on the icon bar, there's an icon showing, in this case, Chrome, but you can select which browser you would like. You can click Open in that browser, and this will ask you what kind of preview, fast preview, full preview. In our case, let's do a full preview. This will go ahead and prepare all of the files, and it will then launch into your web browser your solution. Now, it's included sort of a graphical structure here to kind of give you a feel for what it would look like on a mobile device. But the nice thing about this is actually now running in my browser window on my local machine, and it's calling the alpha development environment as a server. And so you can go through and experiment all these pieces here and do all the things you would do that you would normally do on a mobile device. Now, do realize if your UX uses any kind of phone gap or hardware solutions, you may run into difficulties there. There are certain limitations that the web browser places on what you can do with the app. So in that case, you would have to fully build it into a phone gap app to test those elements. But the reality is the bulk of your solution are not going to require those elements, and or they can be quickly mocked up. So this is a great way to do a quick and dirty test and make sure everything's working the way it is. Now, there's a second method that's available, which is actually a little more powerful and I find very valuable. Let me go ahead and close my browser here, and I'm back into my UX. You'll notice up top there is a remote test button here. Let's go ahead and click on that remote test. This will open up a question, whether I want fast or full. Again, do full preview the first time you've done this. That'll prepare all the files and get it ready. Now, the way this works is you can actually use a web browser on your mobile device connected to your development environment to actually view that operating in the web browser. And so you get a much more sort of realistic test because you're using it on a mobile device. There are three options. You can send an email with a URL, and that URL is actually the URL for this development machine. The one I tend to use is display a QR code with a URL of the test page. You can also copy this to the clipboard or manage it directly. Now, the most important thing you need to realize is that your mobile device and the development machine have to be on the same network or it needs to be accessible through whatever means. And so you'll see down below, I have different methods for specifying what the host name is, i.e., what is the address of my development environment. You can use automatic, it picks up the machine name. You can also use IP address, and in fact, you can click this little blue button right here, and it will show you the IP address of this machine. And I tend to find that's very, very valuable. You may have a situation where if the IP address is every once in a while, like you reboot and it gets a new one, you may have an issue there. But it's easy to check. And in fact, Alpha will let you know if this is still a valid IP address. So again, I clicked display a QR code. I made sure I'm using my IP address, and I click OK. Now what will happen is it will present a user interface with a QR code. And you'll notice this is the address of my machine running my mobile app. So essentially, this is just a pointer to my development machine to where that is working. So now I can move over onto the mobile device and then grab that URL and test it within there, which we'll do next. Thank you so much for taking the Alpha 201 Introduction to Mobile Development with Alpha Anywhere course. In this course, we covered connecting your mobile application to back-end SQL data sources, using the built-in mobile UX component template to quickly build your first mobile application, adding images, buttons, and other navigation items to your mobile system, using the Action JavaScript built-in capability to provide navigation and other behaviors to your mobile application, utilizing the new control bar technology to add powerful headers and footers with sophisticated navigation buttons, adding a list and detail view combination to display and edit the data in both online and offline modes, data field formatting, updating and synchronizing data offline, adding maps to your mobile application to present customer maps, and using the built-in remote testing facility to test your application on a mobile device. Your next step in your Giant Killer training journey is Alpha 202, Advanced Mobile Development with Alpha Anywhere. You will build on the skills you learned in this course to add even more sophisticated capabilities to your mobile application. If you would like to explore developing web applications, you can check out the Alpha 100 series of training courses that include Alpha 101, Introduction to Web Development with Alpha Anywhere, along with Alpha 102, Advanced Web Development with Alpha Anywhere. You can also explore our more advanced courses on topics such as consuming and publishing web services, Alpha 300, or building web dashboards using Alpha Anywhere, Alpha 106.